What's up, JFW family? Welcome back to the Channel 23 podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to reach out and touch the fleet, to engage and inform everyone with all things JFW. Welcome back, Brother Jim, Brother Dave, Super Dave, and our special guest, Rick Bowen from MHC Kenworth.
Morning, everybody. Morning, Rick.
Morning, gentlemen.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yeah, good morning, Rick. Good morning, everybody out there, JFW family.
Thanks for joining us, Rick.
Yeah, we've been trying to have Rick on for a while now.
Yeah, we made fun of him, last week on his supposedly dentist appointment or whatever?
Yeah, I was like, his teeth look fine.
I was running out of reasons.
Before we get too far into the podcast, I would love to pledge our allegiances.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I just wanted to mention, too, for everybody out there, Jim Sr. mentioned that we're kind of missing a piece here of not inviting all of you out there to say the allegiance with us, pledge allegiance with us. So if you're in a spot or in the truck by yourself there and you want to say it, please say it along with us.
Or if you have a rider, you can still say it.
Exactly. Exactly.
And if your rider doesn't say it, never mind. That's fine.
Expressed opinions.
All right. We'll get to that after.
Kick them out of the truck, Jim?
Yeah.
Just a little push?
I mean, nah, that's fine.
That's funny. All right, here we go.
Yep.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Woo-woo.
Yeah.
Love that, right?
I wonder who wrote that.
I'm surprised you don't know.
I'm
Google
surprised at that, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let us know here.
Made the flag was Betsy Ross, right?
Right?
Yeah, she probably didn't write that, though. Dave will tell us here in a minute. But just as a reminder, anything you hear on this podcast, it's not the opinion of JFW. It's just our opinion and Rick Bowen's opinion. And his opinion counts. Going over last week, episode 36 had 339 downloads, so that was up from the week before.
Oh, awesome.
Almost to the number that's acceptable. And then we're at 11.4 thousand total downloads. So
Wow.
moving on up.
Very cool.
That was great.
Everybody have a good 4th of July?
Yeah, absolutely.
I did, yeah.
That's cool.
Still reeling in from it, though. I mean, this morning I'm dragging. You know, here we are after second day at work, and I don't know, that last night of a 3-day weekend celebration time frame, it's just rough. Rough on people who have to get up early.
Yeah, I clearly had trouble adjusting yesterday. But it was a good weekend. We actually, we did a little bit of entertaining, and we had this other couple come over, and they were they leaned to the other side a little bit, you know what I mean? And, I mean, they were pretty cool, though.
You can take that a lot of
Yeah,
places.
holy cow, that
Lean to
whole
the other side
conversation.
of-
Oh,
Politically.
there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I understand the culture in the room now.
Yeah, that's good. But anyway, so the guy, he says to me, you know, I just don't understand why you have a gun in the house. And I looked at it and I'm like, Decepticons. So he started laughing. So then I started laughing. Then my toaster laughed. Then I shot my toaster.
And hence the dad jokes have begun.
Oh, man.
It's time for the dad joke challenge.
Oh. I don't even know where to go with that, Jim. I can't.
I just love his segues, man. Every time it catches me off guard.
He just has to practice them.
Oh,
I think he goes over it 2 or 3 times at least.
I practiced it with my toaster last night.
Oh. Well, me and Holly were playing some trivia this weekend on just a game we were playing and stuff, and one of the question was, someone asked me to name 2 structures that held water, and I was like, well, damn.
Oh, that's funny.
That's
that
cool.
was a good delivery, Jim.
Yeah.
That was right on.
That was good.
Super.
Well, I've lowered myself from dad jokes to Oli and Sven jokes. So Oli was talking with his brother Sven, who lived next door, and Sven said, "You know, Oli, you and Lena, you should really get some new curtains." "Why's that?" Oli asked. "Well, last night I saw you and Lena, well, you know." Ole thought for a while. Then he said, "Ha, ha, Sven, joke's on you. I wasn't even home last night."
Man. That's terrible. Good joke, bro.
I like the accent. That's good. Well, mine's run of the mill. So, what do you call a Star Wars droid that takes the long way around? Do you know, Jim?
I'm trying to come
It's going to be so obvious when he says it.
right. The droid that takes the long way around.
Yeah. R2D2.
Oh, man.
Did not to just change subjects, Rick, because I know you're next. But did you? This true story. There was a guy that Disney just prosecuted. He went in as a Disney worker, dressed up like in their garb, like walked right through the gates. Went in and he actually stole an R2D2 droid from Disney, and I don't know. Then he stole something else, and they finally caught him.
Wow.
And found out and prosecuted him, and he's looking at like jail time and big fine and
Man.
everything. Just some weirdo that thought he could go into Disney and
Get his own
yeah,
R2D2.
yeah. And I don't know whether it was California or Florida or wherever, but yeah, crazy stuff.
Was it like T-do cell or something like that? To the cell or something? There has to be a punchline
yeah.
to that.
There's no joke. Yeah, for real. I just read about it a couple days ago. So
Rick, what do you got?
Well, I know one thing you guys wouldn't have known about me, but back in the 80s, I was in a band called The Prevention. We were better than The Cure.
Man, Rick just slayed
he
it.
stepped right up, didn't he?
Yeah. You know, we never who decided won last week. I think we both sucked. So. But Rick, you did good. You did good. If you want some JFW swag on your way out for that, you could have a hat.
Well, we should ask for last week, though. We should.
Yeah, Linda couldn't decide.
Oh, you did ask Linda or something?
I told her we spent more time together, so
I wasn't even in on it. I thought mine was clearly better than both your guys's.
it may have been, but you weren't in on it. But you want a cheeseburger today? I'll buy you a cheeseburger, Dave. Not a problem. Jim, are you just telling one joke today?
Yeah, I have to save it for next week.
Okay, I'll save mine too then. I was like, I better bring another one because Jim, he likes to tell. Not 7, but 2. New drivers this week.
Well, I can give you one more.
That's okay.
I got a good one.
Okay, hit us with it.
Will you do yours then?
Sure.
Okay. So, what do you call a belt made of $100 bills?
Ooh, belt made of $100 bills. Not a money belt?
A waste of money.
Waste of money. Okay. I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but all my dad jokes are gun puns now. My wife bought me a gun pun shirt from 511, so I'm like, I got to do gun puns from now on. So how do you put a gun in its place?
Holster it.
No. You just tell it, hey, the world does not revolve around you.
That one was bad.
Yeah, that rolls right with the guacamole.
003, Edwin, he keeps seeing me. Holy moly, guacamole.
Oh, man.
All right, let's get to it. New drivers. Joe Brown joined the fleet. That's such an easy name for everybody to remember.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell them why, Dave.
Well, there used to be a out-of-town hauler when DIA was under construction. A lot of companies came in from all over to help move material. And there was a company from Oklahoma. Pretty sure it was Oklahoma, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, the trucks were so ugly. They were old, and they would sit there and burn blue smoke while they were waiting to get loaded. And
Tan and orange.
Yeah, they were green and orange, I think, weren't they?
Were they green and orange?
Yeah,
I thought tan and orange for some
green and
reason.
orange, I think.
Yeah,
I think.
but the drivers were terrible drivers, and there was this one lady driver that we would back into the pile to get loaded, and we would line up along the pile. The stockpiles were huge back then, and so you might get 10 trucks backed into the sand pile, and this lady couldn't back up to save her life. And it got to the point she was holding up the the loading process so much they would just carry the material out to her. I mean, like
on the
50
road.
yards.
Right.
Yeah.
She just stayed out on the road, and
would
we all
stay
backed in.
Well,
Stay
it
on
was
the
funny
road.
before they started doing that. Like 7 trucks could be lined up, and she would pull in and start to back up, and 7 trucks would pull back out of line.
We'd move.
just because it was safer.
I think she did hit somebody. Didn't she?
Couple
Yeah.
times,
so,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I Googled Joe Brown online, and they're huge. They own concrete plants. They own quarries.
Currently,
Back in the day.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Are they still in business, Dave?
I don't know. No, I mean, this was years ago I did that. I just wanted to see who they were.
What'd you find out on the Pledge of Allegiance? Who wrote that back?
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
And by the way, welcome, Joe. Glad to have you, buddy.
Yeah, welcome
yeah,
aboard,
definitely.
Yeah, not
Yep.
to get off subject there.
Francis Bellamy. He was a Baptist minister's son from upstate New York, and he wrote it in 1891.
Wow.
that was the original version.
Yeah, it did not include Under God.
Who added that?
Somebody else, and yeah.
Okay. While you're looking that up, celebrations. Birthdays. We had Fred Powell had a birthday July 3rd. Russ Murphy, July 4th. Francisco Alvarez and Ernesto Valdez shared a birthday today. Happy birthday, guys.
Yeah, happy birthday, everybody.
Happy birthday, everybody.
And then family birthdays. Last week, I don't know, I missed Layla, must be Tina Springsteen's daughter, and then Chris Bortz, that must be Mike Bortz's wife.
Oh, yeah.
Happy birthday, ladies.
Yep.
And then this week, my wife and Veronica's daughter, Carolina, share a birthday on July 3rd. Sam White, he's a July 4th baby. And then Tiana Nuanis, 7'5". Emma Guthrie, that must be Casey's daughter, 7'8". And then, well, happy birthday to you all. And then Susie Pulciani sent us a thank you message for her birthday card. I guess her and Dan finally got around to opening some mail, and they came across her birthday card. So she sent a really nice. Did you see it on Facebook?
No.
No,
No?
missed it. Yeah.
Okay, I'll pull that up here in a second. And then anniversaries, Dwayne Sands, 6 years yesterday.
Way to go, Sam,
Way to
man.
go. Yep.
Yeah,
Way to go, Dwayne.
congratulations, Dwayne, and happy birthday to everybody.
Yeah, that's a lot of birthdays.
Yeah, a lot of birthdays there.
So Susan Pulciani said, I would like to thank the JFW family for the birthday wishes. Sorry not getting back to you sooner. We've just been going through a pile of mail and found your card. It's been a thank you. Sorry, I'm extremely appreciative of the support you have given Dan and I. It's been a godsend. Thank you, Susan Pulciani.
Yeah, you guys just keep getting weller. That doesn't even sound
Healthier.
right. Better, healthier and healthier.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
pulling for you guys.
Yeah, they've definitely faced some adversity
Yeah.
here in the last several months, and got a lot to be thankful for and a lot to work for too. You know,
Yep.
they've got a lot to pull through.
Yep, good people too.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you got, Soup? Did you find it?
No,
Okay.
I didn't look.
Not a problem. There's also another anniversary yesterday. It's a really big one. 87 years.
87. Wow.
JFW had its anniversary yesterday. We've been here for 87 years.
Yeah, crazy.
That's a long time. That was 1935, right, guys?
Yes, you're right, Jim. The when I seen that on the calendar yesterday, or Sam's birthday, there's a lot going on. 4th of July, Independence, all that kind of stuff. But I looked at the picture on the wall because I think that's where we originally got the date of the 2 trucks sitting at Sam Slagle's house, and the picture is small enough or old enough I couldn't tell what the trucks were, what brand they were,
Right.
Dave. But they're single axles and the big O tires, and you tell it's split rims, and just they didn't even. It's a black and white photo, so you can't even tell colors or anything like that. But yeah, just 1935. It's amazing.
Crazy. Think about all the things that happened in 87 years.
Yeah.
Right,
crazy.
Jim?
And you look at that picture and you think, those are just like stake bed trucks. They were big trucks in 1935.
Oh, right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, heavy steels and
Oh,
metals,
yeah,
and yeah, absolutely.
That was
Tires
back when
and stuff.
steel was steel.
So I was sitting here looking at this outline this morning. I was thinking, 87 years. You think I'll be still here at the 100th anniversary.
It's only 13 years. You better be.
I know, but I'll be 74 years old. And I thought, I'll be retired by then. And I thought, well, wait a minute. Marty's 74.
Right?
He's still here.
The 70's the new 30, Dave.
Yeah.
Shout outs. I want to give a shout out to the JFW family. We raised $290 for the Hope for My City outreach event that Paco and Lauren Nahara are involved with. And, of course, JFW is going to match that. So great job, everybody.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Great job.
Very cool.
Yeah. And a quick shout out to Paco, too. He has to speak in front of his church tomorrow night, Dave?
Yes.
Was it? Tomorrow night.
Did he talk to you guys about that?
Yeah, and he was a little nervous and stuff. And
Yeah, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, he's going to talk about different trades. If I kind of came in the back of the conversation, but
Exactly.
Trying to put a program together to help create some trades about the trades. You know,
Interest.
electrician, plumbers, truck drivers, all that kind of
Drywall.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know he did some drywall work for somebody they reached out to, asked him what he needed, and he's like, I need some drywall work. So Paco went in there and pat some holes for him.
He was telling Super Dave and I a little story, and I think he may need a tape measure. Because he was kind of
It
just
was
standing
funny.
and putting his hand on his pants for measurements. And then going over and making the mark was the way I heard it.
Oh, that's funny. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Austin Lovejoy wants to give a shout out to Chain, who likes to go to buy chainsaw, by the way. Chain drove his truck, kept it clean, and fueled it up. And then he also wants to give Stingray a shout out for helping him fix his pigtail. So good job, Chain and Stingray. Johnny B wants to give Veronica a shout out for fueling and cleaning her windshield and keeping his truck in good condition for the day.
Very cool.
Yeah, good stuff, you guys.
And Aladdin wants to give a shout out, a big O shout out to Edward for keeping his truck so clean it took him a minute to realize somebody drove it.
Wow, very cool.
Good job. Thanks, you guys.
You know, sometimes that's tough too for like over the Coors weekend, you know, being the holiday weekend, this main yard was pretty closed and we did so much out of the west yard for Coors. So when we have an east yard person drive one of the west yard trucks,
Right.
they don't know how to fuel up at Shoko.
Right.
So it's really a disadvantage. You know, they don't know where the cards are. They don't know how to use them. They haven't been exposed to that, right?
Plus, we didn't train them. We didn't tell them, hey,
Yeah.
you're driving that truck. Make sure we fuel it up.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, totally set up for failure, right? So
Absolutely.
just to hear those things, because that's exactly what sounds like happened,
Yep.
is very cool.
yeah, so I text Aladdin back. I'm like, I got you, Aladdin. Edward's good people, because the more I hear about Edward, the more I'm impressed. So he wrote back, hell yeah, feels awesome coming back to work and your truck is clean. For sure makes your day, man.
Right.
Right? And it's funny because we're just talking about doing your job, right? Just finding things and putting them back the way you found them, or
Yeah.
you know, leaving it better than you found it. And when it happens, it really helps somebody out, you know, because if you're gone for a few days, you know the feeling. You drive up to your truck and you open up that door not knowing what to expect, and to
Right.
find it better than you left it, you know. For Veronica to jump up on a tire and clean a windshield, you know, it's kind of above and beyond these days because people just don't do it.
Right.
You know, so great job, everybody.
It is a little bit sad that it stands out so much, though, when it should be the norm. You know, the culture that we're trying to
Create,
create.
make,
Yeah.
keep.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we are. I mean, there's a couple shout outs for people doing it. So
Absolutely.
maybe
Absolutely.
it is starting to rub off a little bit.
Yeah.
So you guys got any shout outs for anyone? Rick, you want to shout out to anybody?
I would. You know, I, like you guys, travel the Denver roads all the time and driving all over the city, and I see JFW trucks everywhere. And the thing that makes me proud to be a partner with JFW is to see how these guys drive. And I'll see some knuckleheads out there, and the JFW guys they're doing the right things.
Nice.
And I just got to give credit to the guys because I know they work hard, and it's nice to see true professionals.
That's awesome.
That is
Yeah,
very
thanks,
cool.
Rick.
Thank you. Good
Yeah.
to hear.
Yeah.
Great
Yeah,
shout out.
thanks, you guys. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Here's somebody that's just in their pickup, you know, the public, and
Right.
you never know who's watching, Rick. And you've listened to the podcasts, and we talk about it all the time. It's setting that tone and how it should be and what we need to create. So yeah, thanks everybody out there.
Good job. Good job. Hi, Rick. Well, as we mentioned, we've been trying to get you on. Well, we say we've been trying to get you on it. We've talked about it for probably, I don't know, 6-8 weeks. Hey, we should have Rick on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we only let you know maybe 2 weeks ago, but it feels like we've been talking about it for a while. I know we've never been so prepared for a podcast because you insisted on it. So that's good. I was like, this feels weird. We're actually preparing, which is good. So thank you for that. But before we jump into it, tell us a little bit about yourself, Rick. What's a guy like you like to do on your days off?
I like to spend time with my family.
Nice.
We play a little golf. I enjoy shooting.
Nice.
So it's one of those things where when the wife and I aren't doing things together, I'll go to the range and she works out.
Nice.
When my son's home from college, I've taken him out to like Kiowa Creek and we'll shoot at the, clay pigeons. And here recently, I took my son out there, and it was funny because I hired a guy to give me some lessons, my son and I some lessons. Well, my son starts shooting, and the guy looks at me, he goes, he doesn't need any lessons, he's fine. Me, on the other hand, is a whole different story, and we'll leave that alone. But
I get that.
Anyway, I appreciate you asking.
Yeah, no problem. And then one more question before we jump in to see if we're even going to continue here.
What's that supposed to be?
Who's your favorite customer? You don't have to answer that. I'm just kidding.
Hey, I'm blessed. I have many.
Good answer.
Good answer. Excellent. Well, Rick, tell us how long you've been in the trucking industry and how'd you get involved?
Well, that's one question I'd like to claim the fifth on. You guys know I've been around trucks for a number of years. And it's funny, I was thinking about how I got into the business. A long time ago, I had an old truck not a big truck, but an international truck, a Travelall. Some of you may know what those are.
The old Travelall.
The old Travelall.
Yeah.
Well, I had to go into an international dealer to get parts, and there was a mechanic that I used to go into, and I would talk with this guy, and he couldn't have been nicer. And he really helped teach me how to do a lot of things. And I really thought the world of this guy, and I'd watch him working on big trucks, and somehow or another that just created the interest. And I ended up going to school, an automotive school, and the instructor I had, we were finishing up the program, and he came to me and one of the other guys in the class and said, I got you two knuckleheads a job at a Audi and Porsche dealership. And we thought, hey, we died and gone to heaven. And I looked at him and I said, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I want to work on trucks. And he said, do you realize what you're giving up? I said, I don't think I'm giving up anything. And this is the route that I wanted to go. And I was working for a trash company of all places at that time. And it was one of those things where I worked for two bosses who, for various reasons, went away, and I was the last man standing. And that was the first shop I ever managed. And I was a young kid and had no business doing that. And I told the owner that he needed to find a journeyman because I knew I didn't know what I was doing. And it was
How
kind
old
of
were
funny.
you?
Oh, early 20s.
Okay.
And working 6-7 days a week, 12, 14-hour days. It was insane. But from that, I went on to work for an independent diesel shop where we worked on anything we could push, pull, or drag in. And remember the boss told me, he said, kid, I'm going to make a Detroit man out of you. Now, later on, when I realized what that meant, if I'd have known what that meant, I would have ran out the back door. But actually, it was a great learning environment. Had an opportunity to work on a CAT engine at that independent shop. And none of us had ever worked on any CAT. So the boss said, hey, who wants to work on this? And I raised my hand and really liked what I saw with that CAT engine. Prompted me to go to work to see if I could get a job with Wagner Equipment, and ended up going to work for CAT, or for Wagner, rather, and really enjoyed that. And a tremendous place to learn because they had great training programs, and it was all about doing things the right way. Then Then the economy took a nosedive, and this is back in the early 80s. And we were like cut back to like 32-hour work weeks, and we're all starving, and some of us are moonlighting on the side to make a living. And I saw an ad in the paper. Now, this goes back a ways. We're looking at newspapers for job ads. And there was an ad in the paper, King Soopers needed a mechanic. This one, they had their own, obviously their own fleet,
Right.
their own shop.
Yeah.
And so I applied, and there was a ton of us that applied for that job. And I knew there were guys that had a lot more experience than what I had. But one thing I had going for me is King's had bought some CAT engines, and we were doing all their warranty work at Wagner.
Huh.
And so I told the guys, I said, hey, I know your equipment, and I can do this. And make a long story short, I got the job, and it was really a great opportunity.
Nice.
And so I did that for a couple of years, and I was working a graveyard shift. My days off were like Sundays and Mondays. And I was thinking, this is just not a great time. I mean, that's tough. And the guys that work those shifts, hey, I take my hat off to them because, you just got to have the right mindset for
Right.
it. And as luck would have it, the guy that ran our shop, he and his wife decided they were going to cash out of corporate America and go travel the world. And he came to myself and another guy I worked with on the night shift and told us what was going on. And he and I always got along well, and I was kind of a smart aleck with him on occasion. I said, so what kind of a knucklehead are we going to end up with for a boss? And he said, Bowen, come on up to my office. I need to talk to you. And so everybody's laughing. They think I'm in trouble. And so we go up there, and I said, hey, I'm sorry, Steve. And he goes, no. He says, I got a question for you. Would you be interested in my job? And you could have pushed me over with a feather. I couldn't believe it. And I said, I don't have the experience. He said, you get along well with people, and you do great. He said, I know you care a lot, and that caring is more important than, and we can train you how to manage. And I said, I'm honored. I said, I would love the opportunity. So ended up running King's shop for several years and really loved it. What a wonderful company. And, back then, on the side of all of our trailers, their slogan was, our people make a difference or make the difference. And I really felt that they believed that, and they made you feel that way. And it was a wonderful place to work. Then a job opening came up with a bigger fleet, and I had aspirations of wanting to run more than a shop. And I had an opportunity to go to work for Leprino Foods and became their fleet maintenance manager. And that was a big job. And we had shops from New York to California, distribution centers that we spec the equipment for and help them maintain, in some of the locations. Anyway, wonderful company. Their focus on quality and doing things right was a maintenance guy's dream, because they wanted those trucks, just like you guys, they wanted those trucks to look beautiful. They didn't, if a truck didn't look right, you could get a phone call from the owner, and I did. It was interesting because you didn't want many of those phone calls. One was enough. I got a phone call from the owner of the company, and he's out in Tracy, California, sees one of our trucks going down the highway, and she wasn't clean. And he just called me up and he says, can you help me? And there's only, the right thing was, yes, sir, it'll be done before the end of today.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, so it was great experience, and one of the saddest days of my life in my career path was when I heard that we knew they were going to sell the trans division. And I didn't want to leave the company, but there wasn't no place for me to go.
Right.
Yeah.
So I ended up, we were a test fleet for Carrier Transcold, the other refrigeration manufacturer. Back then, we would all laugh because Carrier was such a small company compared to Thermo King, which was the 800-pound gorilla at the time. We were a test fleet for them, and I saw how well Carrier was improving their product, and I knew that they were going to catch Thermo King. and they needed a regional sales manager to work for them. And Carrier liked technically driven guys, and so I threw my name in the hat and ended up going to work for them and was a regional sales manager for close to a decade.
Wow.
And that was a good run. Great company, wonderful training programs. And then I had a son come into the world, and I didn't want to be an absentee dad. And that was one of those things where, to me, family's always been more important than anything. And so one of my customers actually was looking for a guy to run the maintenance department, and it enabled me to get off the road and get back into the maintenance field. And so I did that for another 12 years. And I happened to be over at MHC one day, and I was actually inspecting some trucks that we were buying. But my career path, like with Kenworth, has been kind of interesting because I'd bought different trucks along my past, but kept going back to buying Kenworths and working with MHC because they always took care of me. I mean, and just the quality of how they did things, and I always felt good about the product. And so I was oversigning for some trucks, and my boss brought up that they were short a couple of sales guys. Well, my smart aleck side comes out, and I'm like, Kenworth's tagline is the world's best truck. So I asked him, I said, well, how hard is it selling the world's best truck, for God's sake? And so he, kind of having a little fun with me. He says, well, I got 2 offices open. Which one do you want? And anyway, we just joked about it, and I went back to work. 3 o'clock the next morning, 3 a.m., I'm staring at the ceiling thinking that, I would really love to do that. So I called him up and asked, who do I need to talk to? And he said, well, I can't talk to you because you work for a customer, and we just can't hire you. And I went, shoot. Looks like I got to be unemployed for a while. I did, and ended up going to work for MHC, going on a little over 3.5 years ago.
Another classy thing about MHC, telling you that, Rick. You were working for a customer. You weren't stealing their people. That's good. It's good stuff. There's a work around that, and you did it. But good points with MHC.
Absolutely.
That's good stuff. Yeah.
So it's been when I look back, when I think of all the wonderful people I've had the privilege of working with and getting to know, I wouldn't trade anything. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, it's funny listening to you, Rick. I'm sure Dave did the same thing. We can walk through like history and how close we were of knowing each other and running into each other because we did all the snow removal at the main yard for King Soopers for several years. And they were fanatic about wanting their yard cleaned and how it was done. And over at the bakery side, Dave? We'd go over right next to the shop and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that bakery side, and we'd do that and all that kind of stuff. And that was in the 80s there, maybe early 90s. And then when you talk about Cat engines, our trucks, the Fords we bought in the early 80s, they were all Cummins, and our peak motor or our prize was being able to have a Cat motor in our trucks. That was always more money and everything else than a Cummins. And to get our first trucks with Cats, we were like, man, we got badass trucks now and badass engines. So like when you talk about Wagner and Cat, that was another goal of ours. And then you get to Leprino, and there again, you were back to some badass trucks. Big road trucks, beautiful trucks. Always
I don't think people really realize when you talk about Leprino, who they were and who they still are.
Exactly.
I just looked them up a month and a half ago or something like that because there was an article in the paper about some family dynamic that's changing. And they are not the country's, they are the world's largest mozzarella cheese producer. The world's largest mozzarella cheese producer. That's solely where Papa John's, Domino's, and Pizza Hut gets their cheese, which you'd mentioned that when we spoke a week or two ago, Rick, that, back then they were tied up with Domino's. I don't even know if Papa John's existed.
Yes.
Did they really? That must have been back east, because to me they didn't make it out here until 20 years ago or whatnot. But yeah, they're they are just this massive entity, and when you talk about their trucks and their facility and all of that, it's just hands down. It was just class all the way across.
Well, they truly,
world class.
embrace quality in everything that they do.
Yes.
One thing was interesting, they recognized that they needed to drive quality, in all the cheese plants. And so they wanted to create 4 pilot quality teams just to see how the quality team approach would work within the company. And my boss was in one of these executive meetings and said, I want one in my maintenance department. So yours truly ended up going through the training, how to create and facilitate a quality team approach to problem solving. And it was a wonderful experience. In fact, our maintenance shop, we had 2 quality teams, one in the trailer / refrigeration side of the house, then the other was on the truck side. And both the quality teams won awards almost every year because of process improvements and driving costs the right way.
Wow.
And what was really cool is looking at how the mechanics really embraced what we were doing. I mean, those guys knew the problems way better than I ever would. And when we were smart enough to open up the door and listen to them, the great ideas that came from them to fix some of the things that we had going on was just phenomenal to watch. And to be a part of that, I look back and I was lucky, to be a part of it.
Sure.
And I apologize. I did a terrible job introducing Rick. If you haven't figured it out yet, Rick is actually our Kenworth salesperson. He's the one that sells us all of our Kenworths. So you could thank him for the pretty red trucks.
Yeah, I was going to jump in there or do it at the end. When you mentioned, Jam, that we've talked about having Rick on here for several weeks. And it is because of his background, Rick, that you just walked through your employment history, but having you as a salesman and Jam joking with the outline having to be laid out here, that's what you've brought to the table for us as far as ordering a truck. And Dave is pretty good about coming up with questions about a truck, right, Rick? I mean, he kind of bleeds that, but you're also passionate about finding that answer and learning about that answer and getting us, maybe 2 choices of whatever it might be, tire size or whatever, or brand, and mixing that this is going to be the best option for us. And Jam, we've, and for the audience out there, we've enjoyed our relationship for the last, 2.5 years now, Rick? You've been with MHC, or
Almost 3.5.
3.5, or our salesman anyway, right? Or
Well, we did the 40 Kenworths 2.5 years ago, Jim.
yeah, 2020. I mean, 2019 is when we did that, but I mean, we got them in 2020. So it's always hard to keep the crossing the order lines, and when we get the trucks, right?
Yeah.
So Jam, it's important for everybody to know what a great job he's done for us.
Are all the salesmen gearheads? So do they all have, or some of these guys like, oh, this is cool, it has accident mitigation, you should get it?
I know that's a question for Rick, but no.
Definitely
No,
not.
we can answer that, Jam. Yeah, we've struggled with salesmen that we teach.
And it's funny because I had no idea until last week, Rick, when you came by and we kind of just bouncing some ideas around. I had no idea what your background was. I was like, holy cow, this dude's serious, because you see a salesman and you look like a salesman now. You know what I mean? You dress very nice.
He's looking good this morning.
Yeah.
He's dressed for a podcast.
I'm glad I wore my.
So he's got a face for radio.
He knew we were filming. But yeah, so I mean,
You see that up there on that picture right there? That's where we're filming you.
yeah, I think it's really cool that he has a background that he has, and when you say something, we could believe it. Like this truck can do this or it can't do this.
I got to throw props out to you too, Rick, because you do know after the Ford LTL 9000s, we were a Peterbilt house.
Yep.
So,
Big time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and we did try the 2 Kenworths, Dave. Remember what?
Yeah, they lasted 4 years. So I know
95s.
Yeah,
They were
right?
94s.
94s.
Yeah.
And Rick, the salesman at that time was like, "Oh, you don't want that. Oh, you don't want that. Oh, you don't want that." And we're like,
What do you need a CD player in your radio for? Well, because we want it. It's nice to provide our drivers with.
"Yeah.
Oh, you don't need that.
Yeah.
Why do you want to ride cab? Because it's comfortable? Oh, you don't need that. All right. Is it your truck or ours? Unless you're paying the bill, that's what we want.
Yep,
You know,
yeah.
that's
and that was before MHC. You know?
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Rick, can you picture yourself doing something different? I mean, other than maintenance and technical stuff and selling Kenworths, is there a completely different industry that ever caught your attention?
I had the pleasure of doing some volunteer work with like the Denver Big Brothers Association.
Oh, nice.
And I was a big brother for 5 years, and I look back on programs like that that need people to help them, and I've often thought that if I wouldn't have done that, I would have loved to have done something working with kids.
That's awesome.
Honestly, that's probably would have been my second choice.
So your boss at King's was right. You're good with people, and yeah, if you can learn how to deal with people and kids, and the rest comes easy.
Yep.
So
Definitely.
man.
Hey, you gave your time for a lot of years as an Eagle Scout, Rick?
No, I
Or
was in the Cub Scouts. We were
Cub Scout?
I was like a den leader for a little while, and then a pack leader, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's good to give to the kids. Yeah, that's awesome.
Can you talk about the evolution of the transportation industry a little bit? Things you're seeing, safety devices, the disc brakes, ABS. You mentioned roll stability systems the other day. Now these trucks have accident mitigation, stuff like that. Can you tell us about what you're seeing and what you like and what you don't like?
You bet. You know, when I think back of going, let's say, several years ago, when the industry saw a need for something as simple as a automatic slack adjuster. Leprino was involved with NHTSA in vetting out what automatic slack adjusters could really do and how they needed to be maintained. So I had the privilege of working with a brake engineer from NHTSA a long time ago. And this gentleman helped educate me on what was coming, ABS systems. And anyway, from that, we recognized that ABS was going to be a huge benefit to our industry, from a stopping performance, keeping the vehicles stable, during inclement weather, trying to prevent tire flat spotting, all those wonderful things. And from the advent of ABS, roll stability was one of those systems that was a wonderful additional program because you had all these sensors and modulation valves that could basically pulsate the vehicle's braking system, where with the right sensors, meaning a roll sensor, a yaw sensor, you could prevent a vehicle from rolling over in a lot of cases. Not all, of course. Somebody drives off the road, truck could go over, but I have seen firsthand where these systems have literally saved a catastrophic failure. And I was tickled to death to see when NHTSA finally mandated the roll stability systems back in 2017. Personally, I felt they waited too long. I wish they would have done it sooner. In one of my roles as a maintenance manager, I worked for a company where they had a rollover a year at this one location. And when I heard that, I'm like, well, what's causing this? I mean, this is not good. I mean, we got to fix this. Make a long story short, we put roll stability systems on those trucks, never had a rollover there again.
Wow.
Now, there's a lot of driver training that went into that, because when we first put them in, a week after the trucks went into service, we're getting all these complaints from the drivers saying, something's driving my truck or my throttle's coming off, and I'm like, the system's doing its job. Well, we were able to take, or actually I took the Bendix software, downloaded the ECM in the truck for the Bendix system, and it showed me the number of interventions that was taking place. And when I saw how severe it was, I mean, it told me that we needed to do some driver training now. And so we got the guys together and we explained to them what was going on. And then once the drivers understood, and I'll be the first to admit, I should have, before we put that system in place, got all those drivers together and educated them and been way more proactive. And I think that if we would have done the right thing by being proactive with them, we wouldn't have had any complaints. And once guys understood how that system worked, they loved it.
Yeah, we learned that over here too. It's better to tell people ahead of time. Can you explain how the roll stability system works?
Well, with a combination of sensors, so it's looking at, let's say, steering wheel position, vehicle speed, lateral motion. Basically, it has like a gyroscope inside the truck. So if a guy's coming into a corner too fast, the system can tell that, hey, I need to slow down. So, it's got like 5 different levels of intervention, from momentarily braking the throttle, fully braking the throttle, light brake application, moderate brake application, everything she's got to prevent a rollover.
Wow.
And it's truly amazing watching them work. And years ago, I was at the Eaton Proving Grounds in Michigan, and this is where they were showcasing how well the ABS systems worked. And there was a lady that was their test track driver and driver trainer, worked for Eaton. And I'll tell you what, boys, this lady knew how to drive a truck. And she was fun to watch. And we all happen to be in a truck with her, and she's driving through these pylons without the ABS system on, and we've got outriggers on the back of the trailer, and we can see that this thing would have went over.
Oh, wow.
And then she turns the ABS system on, comes through the pylons actually faster, and I'm thinking, oh no, this is a train wreck. We're going over. And she just drove through it like it was nothing. And it proved to us just how well those systems could work. And one story I shared with you a few days ago, while we were with this driver trainer, she said, guys, if you ever have a trailer that swings out, I want to show you how to do a U-turn on an interstate. And I'm like, U-turn on the interstate? What do you mean? So we're all in the truck with her, and so she's going through these, down this test track, forces the trailer to swing out, and then literally drives away from the trailer and keeps the throttle on, and we did a U-turn on this test track.
Wow.
And all of us were just in awe. And so anyway, just a shout out to, I wish I remembered that lady's name, but she was phenomenal.
How wide was the track that you did a U-turn on? Was it just like a 3-lane, or?
She was telling us that like on a 2-lane with, let's say, the sides of the road and everything. Now, of course, I'm trying to remember if trailers were 53 foot back then.
Right.
Probably not.
Probably 48.
Yeah.
Or even 45.
That's pretty badass. One thing we're super excited about is the accident mitigation systems. Have you got any stories about those? Have you seen them work in action? Has any customers called you and said thank you?
We've had a lot of wonderful feedback. I think the hardest point is, the driver, the first time he gets in one, that feeling of, hey, this, quite often, and I'm guilty as anybody, so I'm not speaking out of school, where my following distance isn't as ideal as it should be. And quite often, with especially the traffic we have in the Denver metro area, it's hard for a guy to have that safe zone because people are always pulling in front of them. And, I like to share with drivers, I always ask them, who's the professional out there? It's us.
Right.
We're the professionals. So,
Right.
Hey, even though people are cutting off our safe zone, we still got to make it work. Well, the collision mitigation systems let you know if you've compromised that safe zone. And some drivers have a hard time getting used to it. But one thing that I have seen, even guys who were adamant about not wanting it, that over time where they've come back and said, that really works.
Yeah.
And I like that. And, and I think of a similar story with automatic transmissions. I remember years ago, I had a guy that came into my office, and I honestly thought he and I were going to start wrestling. And he was, there was no way he was going to drive that truck with an automatic transmission. And he'd been with us for a long time. He was a good driver. And he was just adamant about not wanting to drive that truck. So I pleaded with him. I begged him. I said, hey, just give it a day or 2 days. And he said, finally, he agreed, because I just kept, hey, I need you to set an example for the rest of the guys, and you're important to us. Well, the guy gets in the truck. I don't see him all week, and I'm thinking, oh no, Charlie quit. I called down to dispatch, and I said, hey, how's Charlie doing? Where is he? Oh, Rick, he loves that new truck. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I said, would you call me when he hits the fuel island? So he comes in that afternoon. I go out the fuel island, and I ask him, I said, hey, how are you and that new truck getting along? Now, he looks over his shoulder, looks all the way around to see who's there to listen. And he said, get over here. So I go over, and he goes, don't take me out of this new truck. He says, I love this automatic transmission. So we both laughed about that. And it was cool, because the story he shared with me, that he felt that it helped him in traffic-dense environments. So when the traffic was really thick, he could concentrate on what I affectionately call the crazy motoring public. And he felt he was a safer driver. And
Nice.
At the end of the day, he wasn't as tired. He felt more refreshed. And I just thought, boy, what a wonderful experience to see how these guys embrace technology and where it really works and helps.
Yeah, I have a similar story, because I was in a brand new 18-speed, and I thought I was Billy Badass. And one day I came in, and my boss was like, "Oh, that's your new truck there," and it was a brand new automatic, and I was kicking and screaming for about 2 weeks, and then I was like, "Man, I hope they don't remember that I said I don't want this truck," because it was truly better. And to me, it's like a TV. How many people do you know that still want to watch a tube television with a dial on it with no remote? As technology improves, we usually conform and admit it's better. So I don't know what the hang-up is, but same thing here. People didn't like the automatics. Now they like them. For me, if there's, we don't really have any left, but, well, a couple. If there was a 13-speed and automatic parked next to each other and I got to go do something, I'm taking the automatic every
Right.
time. You know? I wouldn't buy a Cadillac with a manual transmission.
I would like to add something to that, though. The early prototypes were not what they are today. The very first automatics were not as smooth or as efficient, and they were hard. These ones today are like driving a car. They shift when you want them to. They don't shift too often, I guess. The older ones, and I go back to the auto shifts that had a clutch in them, and part of the problem was because the engine didn't communicate with the transmission very well, and now it's all integrated, right? But the improvement has been night and day in the last...
I couldn't agree with you more, because
Yeah.
I went through the same dilemma back in the early 90s when we were testing the first automatics, and this was at Leprino Foods. It was tough, to say the least. But fast forward to where we're at today, I think they are so intuitive. A good driver he knows how to let it flow. And
Right.
most guys say, I don't even take it out of drive anymore. If they're, running in the right areas, I'll put it. Today, approximately 75% of the trucks we sell have automatics. In some trucks, like in our over-the-road trucks, we're actually in the 85 to 90% range. So not too many people are asking for manuals anymore.
Isn't it pretty much a standard order now, Rick, to come with an AMT or an automatic?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, you almost have to spec a manual transmission, correct?
Right.
Like a lowboy truck or, something that fits that need, right? Yeah.
And there are some applications where the guys, they love what that 18-speed can do. And, hey, we understand that. But and that's why, what I love about, what we do is, it's truly a custom-built truck.
Yeah. I think it's funny how we've sat here this morning and every time there's new technology available, at some point we're kicking and screaming about it. That, oh, this isn't going to work, this isn't going to work. And we've sat here for a year now complaining about electric trucks. You guys have some in now, going to be able to come test them today, right?
Correct.
Have the big wigs in from from
Kenworth
today, and going to be able to go talk to them about it and whatnot. And I just think it's funny because Jim and I banter back and forth, and not to get political, but the administration and the way things are being kind of forced on us. But go back in time, and I just mentioned to you this morning, if we walked into anyone's garage here and said, "Hey, give me your electric drill back," that's never going to work. Everybody would be like, "Bullshit, I love my electric drill. That works great." And then we talked about, well, go back to Henry Ford, and he's producing several hundred cars a day, and there aren't even gas stations to get between here and New York or LA or whatever. But by God, he's making them and they're selling them and people want them, and I just, it's funny, you talk about, I think it was 1994 that automatic slack adjusters became mandatory, right? I think it was 94.
Yep.
Then when did ABS become mandatory? Was that 99, 2000, Rick? I mean, I think maybe we had it prior to that.
Yeah,
just
we were able to spec it before, but it was like a lot
mandatory.
of things.
Yeah.
I think you're close.
Yeah, somewhere in there. But I guess, the advent of all those things, when we first got the automatic slack adjusters and, I don't know how many we had. We weren't as technology driven back then. We didn't have the ability to be. We were kind of forced to run what we had and didn't have the advantages of all the technology then. And I know when we did get one, and, I'm making it up, we may have had one failure out of 12, and it's like, oh, those are never going to work, when in actuality, hey, listen, the other 11 are amazing. We had one fail, and it was just a failure, kind of random, whatever the case may be, but now you step up to disc brakes, to, the roll stability, just all of the technology that has made our industry as a whole better. And that's what we talk about on the podcast constantly is, how do we be better? How do we create a better driver? How do we create a safer environment? Trucking, especially the end dump industry, has a horrible reputation. We have a horrible reputation in town, and when I say we, the gravel industry as a whole, and that's been Jim and I and JFW's approach is, we need to change this industry. We need to make this industry better. The only way we can do it is talk about it, preach about it, try and have good equipment, try and have a culture and better practices in place, so we create a better, safer environment, right? You have to start somewhere, and at least if you're involved in it, people start seeing that. And you preach about the culture and you talk about the things. So I guess just the advent of evolution, we'll just continue getting better. Maybe in a decade, we'll have a whole fleet of electric trucks. Who knows? I want to believe that on one hand, and on the other, man, I'm standing here fighting, shaking my head. No way. No frickin' way. It's not going to be possible, but who knows?
Like you said about being political, though, Dave, I think that's the onset of, I was thinking as Rick was doing this, that automatic slack adjusters. I mean, that's a game changer.
Right.
Not to have to adjust your brakes and make sure the button on the slack adjusters popped up, or it didn't stay down, or it didn't back off, and you having to do it every day. I remember when they were coming out, and that was just fantastic.
Yeah.
But that was a natural evolution of being better. And Rick, you got to agree with me there. Is then you go to your ABS, and you didn't think they brought out stability control fast enough. But the electric truck, that's not to make us better. Well, it is, if you want to call, carbon, but it's being forced there. It's not being brought to us organically, like, here's a problem with the brakes.
Right.
Let's make an automatic slack adjuster.
It's not a safety thing.
Well,
yeah.
One of the things we talked about that is, just kind of like I mentioned, Henry Ford making all these cars. People wanted those cars, right? There was a need. People were lined up. He couldn't make them fast enough. That's not the case with the trucks right now, right? I mean, I don't think there's 1,000 customers placing orders for 50,000 trucks.
Electric,
yeah.
me. Yeah,
So,
electric trucks,
and Rick, you can prove me wrong. If there are, I believe it's because the demand is there because they're being required to do that.
Correct.
We
all know that whether it's the EPA or CARB, especially in California, where they've got mandates in place where by 2030 or 2027, there's certain production levels OEMs have to hit for selling trucks into California.
Right. I don't want to put you on the spot, Rick, but isn't that, and I have the numbers wrong, you may not know them, but what is it, like 2 of every 10 trucks need to be electric in California for sales?
David, we've got a presentation on this. So
I bet.
we get, and I don't remember all that off the top of my head, but it's very aggressive. And considering, we're certainly at an early stage. Now, some of the EV trucks have been under test for some time now, which thank goodness for that. Even hydrogen-powered trucks have been on test for several years. So there's definitely some cool things that are coming down the pike. Now, whether or not the infrastructure will be ready on time, that's a big question. And I think that there are customers of ours that we're working with that recognize that in like a very localized environment, the EVs can play a good role for them. Now, we all recognize that the cost for the EVs right now is extremely high. The good news, there are some entities, like out in California, they have what's called the HVIP program, that is a voucher-based program which provides a substantial benefit to that end user to make it a lot more affordable. So they're trying to put seed money out there to get people to buy in.
Right.
Very cool. I wanted to roll back to the accident mitigation real quick because this will be interesting for you to know, Rick. So right now we had 2 trucks in the fleet with accident mitigation. Our cameras also have artificial intelligence that will alert a driver and us when they're following too close. It'll only go off once we're 1 second or less behind the other vehicle, above 45 miles an hour. I'll have to check with Stingray and Dustin, and maybe JR would know, but my understanding is those 2 trucks, our cameras aren't picking up following too close because the accident mitigation and the adaptive cruise control are backing them off before that. So,
that's
awesome. Little piece of information I thought you might like.
Bet. That's good.
Yeah, that's what Dustin has told me. I was like, does your camera talk to you? And he goes, no.
The truck does.
The truck does, yeah. The truck catches it first.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
But I think because the truck is set up more than 1 second.
More aggressive. If you want to call it whatever the.
Yeah, I mean, I just ran up to Lake McConaughey this weekend over the 4th, and my wife's car has the adaptive cruise in it, and you can set how close you want to follow that car in front of you, right, or whatever
half a second.
yeah. I was like, if I don't have 8 feet, it's not close enough. We're only running 92 miles an hour. 8 feet's fine.
That's drafting.
I need fuel mileage, right? Come on, $5 a gallon. No, it amazed me because if I was running the cruise like I used to, I would roll up on that vehicle,
right?
And pretty soon I'd find myself like, oh my gosh, I'm really pushing this guy, and I'd have to drop back
because you wanted him to get the hell out of the way,
right? It's like, hey, lead follower, get out of the way, right?
That's right.
But anyway, the adaptive, you'd roll up on them, and it's so fluid now. The vehicle just slows a little bit, and you have your 4-second following distance. And I really got to counting it and checking it, and I'm like, wow, this is just spot on. And then you'd have a car roll up on you and be like, this is BS. And they just go around you, get right in front of you and push that guy that you're not pushing.
Right.
And it's like, this is exactly what we talk about all day, every day, on every podcast, about being better and whatnot. But, I mean, that's what we're faced with, right?
Yeah.
But it was impressive that car had the technology and just, it's been around for years, and that's what the trucks have. They're capable of that, and that's what they do. And they do it flawlessly just like that. So
that's interesting because I was using the adaptive on our Ram this weekend, and I had it set at like 72, and the car in front of me was doing 65, and it held me up at 65. But I started counting, and it's only giving me at its highest setting, its furthest setting, about 2 seconds of following distance. I was like, man, I want it to be further, but it was 2 seconds at like 65, 70 miles an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's because the computer's reaction time is a fraction of yours.
Well, that's probably true. Especially if I was eating cereal or texting while my car's driving itself. Yeah,
you've been slapping your hands, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Rick, what's your absolute favorite piece of technology?
Dave and Jim will laugh at this.
Let's nerd out a little bit.
Brother Dave had the misfortune of sitting next to me on an airplane once upon a time. And one of the things that I've embraced for a long time is looking at how you can program a truck to make it easier for a driver to drive, safer, improve fuel economy, all those things. And when I think of the, and I apologize, Dave, several times for this, because we were talking about programming for more than a couple hours. And it was fun because when we came back, then Jim and Mikey got involved in the conversation, and we really worked hard on getting the trucks programmed the way JFW wanted them.
Awesome.
And so I love that technology, and it's one of those things where as the trucks keep getting more and more complex, it's mind-boggling what we can do. I want to say most of it's all good. So I think that there's some cool things there. Some of the technologies we've talked about, I've been a huge fan of disc brakes forever, because I've seen how disc brakes have prevented catastrophic accidents. We talked about the ABS, the collision mitigation system. I think that those are no-brainers to me. One thing that I think is cool that's coming out is going to be cameras replacing the mirrors on the outside of the trucks.
Wow.
So on the A-pillars, on the side of the truck, you'll have a display screen, and you can adjust that display screen.
Wow.
And I had the opportunity to drive a truck with those on board, and the quality of your vision behind you is amazing.
Wow.
So there's definitely some cool things coming.
That is very cool.
I hope it's Dad got a new Cadillac with his dream car. He keeps telling me and Dave this is his last car because he thinks he's passing away. But that's a Dad thing there.
And Dad, this is your fourth last car.
Since you're listening. But anyway, Rick, the Cadillac has where you can put the screen up on the dash, and it has it in the rear view mirror, so you don't have to look through the windshield. You can just look at his dash and drive the car in front of you. Drive it forward, right? But then it's got everything in the rear view mirror, giving you the everything behind you, and then as the mirror. And when I've driven it a couple times, I was like, Dad, can you shut this off? It's like makes you seasick or something, because it's too much visual. You're like, well, I'm watching the car go by me, I see it in the mirror, and I just passed me in the dash, and you're just like, whoa, wait a minute. So I hope it's not quite that crazy. No. But the vision on it's like playing a video game. It's just in front of you. You don't have to look out the windshield. It's crazy.
What was amazing, they were showing us where when a guy's backing up, it's like he can almost see around a corner.
Wow.
I mean, the visibility a guy has behind him, I'm like, how do they do that? And I can't answer that question, but it was impressive to see.
Yeah, that 360 view out of just a lens in front of you is crazy, isn't it, Rick? Yeah,
that is pretty cool. Yeah. One of the big things Rick taught me, and I'd never heard it until he said it, and he said it multiple times. This was years ago when we were first getting to know him, and now I hear it constantly, is the devil's in the details. Right. I had never heard that until I was around you, Rick, and it is so spot on, and those details are the programming things, the items that are available. And they are things that, we've had failures in some of the components or the technology, but when it works, it is amazing. And what I'm leading up to is, like when we engage the PTO, we can set it so it doesn't allow the truck to go over 5 miles an hour. Well, in the years past, it's not like it was a huge problem, but we had ruined PTOs or transmissions because we had left them engaged and drove off. We drove to the pit with the PTO engaged, ruined it, right? Or, we had one where the PTO was engaged, the driver was driving down the interstate, answered his phone, and this was back in the day, he had a bag phone. When he pulled the cord up, it hooked his raise control because it was in the cab between the seats. The trailer was going down the road, and we damn near took out Evans Bridge?
Oh, wow.
Alameda Bridge.
Alameda,
Thank you, Dave.
yeah.
Alameda on I-25. We hit the bridge. We were responsible for it till the next person hit the bridge. So, I mean, the technology that's there is phenomenal, right? You engage the PTO, your airbags automatically drop. I don't know how many airbags we've blown, how many shocks we've broken. In the years past, this technology eliminates all of those problems. Does it bring on an onset of more? Possibly. We've ran into some scenarios where, we've got it dialed into where we know where the failure is. We can work through it now. When we first got it, it was like, oh my God, what did we do, right? But able to get through it. So I guess it's like everything else, when the automatic slack adjusters came out, did we think they were perfect? No, but they did make us better, So I believe this technology makes us better, So
I would agree.
all good stuff.
Yeah, the one that pops into my head, Dave, just because I just moved the new truck 0011 was we took it over to Rick or to MHC, and we had the Urge to Move programmed in it, Rick, and we have where we've changed some programming and we lose the urge to move, and the driver doesn't realize it, or we haven't driven it and don't know how valuable it is. And I moved the truck out of the wash bay, and Mike's like, hey, just so you know, the urge to move doesn't work in that truck. It's not programmed yet. And I'm like, okay, Mike, no big deal. And I get in it and I push the button and let off the brake, and the truck just sits there, and I'm like, it's not moving, and I make sure the brake's in, I put it in drive, I put it in reverse, and it beeps, I put it in first, I drop it down, the truck just sits there, and it still hadn't dawned on me that Mike told me the urge to move doesn't work, right, and so I'm like, oh, urge to move doesn't work, so I step on the fuel, and I'm in reverse, that truck launches. It's like, and out the door I go, and I'm like, holy shit, so I hit the brakes and let off the brake, truck doesn't move again, and I'm like, this is going to be fun, and what a great thing that urge to move is if it's working.
I love the urge to move.
Right? It just makes all
it's
the
phenomenal.
Yeah, the Freightliners don't have that, and I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah. It was just so funny how that, laughing because Mike, hey, the urge to move doesn't work in that truck. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people jump in these trucks and they don't realize how much thought went into the programming of the truck.
Oh, absolutely.
No idea, like, brand new truck, cool, let's go trucking. Well, there was a lot. I mean, it sounds like there was no stone left unturned when you guys.
And the cool thing about the evolution is that's what we appreciate about Rick is he's constantly educating himself in what's available and how things are evolving and what is available. We have it set up, whether everyone knows it or not, when you open a door in the truck, if the brakes aren't set, the backup alarm comes on. Well, that's just a warning that, hey, you need to set a brake. You can't get out of the truck. You need to set the brakes. Don't get out of the truck.
Right.
We also have it set the minute you put it in reverse. The radio shuts off.
Right.
Well, that's so when you're backing up, you have some audible so you can hear things. We're waiting for the technology to be available when you put it in reverse. The radio shuts off and the dark-ass tinted windows come down.
Right.
So you can see the concrete wall we keep backing into.
That was one of the things I read on the
Right?
truck. When I put it in reverse and it didn't move, it did say the radio's turned down. It said that on the dash. I'm like, oh, that's cool, but truck's still not moving.
Yeah. So, those are things like you said, Jim. Some people come here and may have never driven a truck this new. Right? And they've been in something that's just a decade old. Really,
I
when
hear
you
that a
think about
lot,
it.
Dave.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I take them out for the test drive and stuff, they look around like it's a fighter cockpit,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're completely disoriented, I guess. Yeah.
Right. And then there's all the tricks to this truck.
Yeah.
Or not tricks, it's all the little learning things that go on with this truck that make it better because it's better and then you're better, compared to, like not using the clutch when you had a float in the gears.
Yeah.
That made it easier shifting, but that was that old style truck.
Rick, do you love sales?
I do.
What?
I,
Go
well,
ahead.
the biggest thing is I get to work with some really wonderful customers, and it's to me the best part of the job is being able to help people. Where Dave's point of that safety feature as far as the truck letting a driver know, hey, my park brakes aren't set, and the guy's climbing out of the truck.
Right.
You guys been at this a long time, so you'll understand this. There are a lot of my customers, when I share with them that we have this functionality, I've had guys look at me like, put it in every truck, please.
Right.
A very good customer of ours shared a story where a driver had parked up on top of a small hill, didn't have park brakes set, climbs out of the truck rolls down the hill and runs into a tree that was the width of the tree was bigger than this conference table.
Oof.
Totaled the truck.
Wow.
Now, I'm happy to say the police I worked with, we didn't have a problem like that, but we had smaller problems, and I mean, it adds up. And the cost of a device like that is so inexpensive when you look at the safety benefits. Anyway, it's fun to be able to help people like that, and makes my job great.
Do you ever think about selling a truck? What do you think about at your job?
Well, first of all, you need to get to know the customer and what their needs are, and to understand their business, and to find out what do they like, what don't they like. You know, some people have certain preferences from past experience that you've got to be, you know, in tune with,
Right.
and make sure that they know that you want to take the time and build the truck that's going to do a good job for them.
Right. So what I'm hearing is you don't drive to work saying, I need to sell 5 trucks today. You drive to work thinking about, I want to help people solve problems.
Right.
There's actually a book out there, Rick. I don't know if you read a lot of sales books, and it's a real easy read, but the title of the book is The Go-Giver instead of The Go-Getter. Have you heard of it?
I have not.
It's so good, and it talks about selling to give instead of selling to get. It's awesome. You should give it a read. I actually have
appreciate
it.
that.
If you want to borrow it, I have it at home.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's a good book.
Thank you.
So, very cool. What did I hear somebody say something?
I was just going to say, just to brag on Rick here, is that the thing? That's the thing we're missing. Is, I mean, I'm sure he cares about the sale of the truck, right, Jan?
Well, we have bills to pay and we want to earn a living. Our job, your job is to sell trucks.
Yeah,
I
not,
get that.
Yeah, not to be a smartass. He does go to work going, I need to sell 5 trucks today. I just need to find someone that needs 5 trucks and then tailor that experience to it, right?
Exactly, but
I
he
don't believe
brings
that. I don't believe that. I don't.
But he brings that knowledge to us that we go,
Yeah.
we need to buy 5 trucks.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the change or the break where, I'm just getting 5 trucks. No, I want those 5 trucks.
Right.
And so, thanks, Rick, for that.
Yeah, and I think
Welcome.
it's super important, and I think you try really, really hard. It's the knowledge of the product that you have.
Yeah.
You can impart that to your customer, and then that turns them on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easier to sell something you love than to sell something you don't believe in. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Oh, hands down.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because we'll go to, Brand X that's a competitor of Kenworth. And I'll ask those salesmen, hey, what about this? What about that? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. And, I'll, just to drop Peterbilt right in there, they are a PACCAR owned company. They own Peterbilt and Kenworth.
Right.
They have the same technology.
Right.
What aren't their people doing that Kenworth's people are? When it's the same engine, the same cab, same transmission, same drivetrain, same electronics, but they don't know anything about it. There's an issue there somewhere. There's a breakdown,
Yes.
from the top down somehow.
Especially, and Rick, because you're immersed in it more than we are, but we've heard, we're separate companies. We're separate company. We're Peterbilt and we're Kenworth and there's PACCAR. But then as we get educated and deal with people higher up in the chain, I guess, that service more of our size companies, we find out that Peterbilt people go to work for PACCAR. PACCAR go to work for Peterbilt. Peterbilt goes to work for Kenworth. And we're like, well, I thought you were separate companies. What are you doing, right?
Yeah, and just to clarify, because you said they go to work, that's the promotion.
Yeah,
That's not I quit here and went here. That's the next step. Oh, I'm not working for Kenworth anymore. Now I work for Peterbilt.
or
All
PACCAR.
under the PACCAR
Yeah,
roof, or
yeah.
however you want to look at that.
Yeah, right,
Yeah, just
right.
to like clean that up a little bit. Yeah.
Rick, what's the culture like at MHC Kenworth? What's your work culture like?
MHC has a motto that I love, and the motto is whatever it takes. And I believe that's been ingrained in the company for a long time, and that comes from the original ownership. And I think that if you don't have that mindset, you're probably not going to work there long. It's one of those things where, and I'll draw an analogy between Leprino Foods and MHC. a lot of similarities. Very driven, very focused. When I think of how they go about managing processes, now, hey, do we make mistakes? Yes. Are there things that I wish we had a chance to do over? Absolutely.
Of course.
And it's one of those things, though, but I think the company honestly cares. And when you look at the capabilities that they have, just a 30-second commercial, when I think of, we got a shop that's open 7/24. Not too many shops do that. We've got a beautiful body shop that does excellent quality of work. Parts department with, last time I heard, we had like over $5 million worth of parts in inventory.
Oh, wow.
Now, it's never the right part, but we got $5 million worth.
Is it ever the right part, Rick? Right?
And with today's challenges, I mean, it's obviously tougher than ever before.
Sure.
But the environment, it's a fun place to work.
Nice. Do you run into workforce problems right now? Is there problems finding people, or are there people problems with the ones you got?
I think that everybody has challenges. I don't know of an industry or a company that doesn't. When I look at the caliber of people that we're able to attract and keep, I think that says a lot.
Nice.
And I think that's the reason why the company does get great benefits, a lot of things that make people want to stay there.
Nice. You touched on it, but what are some of the hurdles you're faced with the supply chain right now?
I'm going to try to make this as short a story as I can. I don't know of a part on a truck that we haven't seen various issues with. From everybody's well aware of the chip problems and everything related to that, but we've seen body parts, tire shortages, spot shortages of various things. We've had moments where we thought it was getting better, then all of a sudden you think, well, okay, now it's going the other direction. So all I can tell you, there's a tremendous effort that I know the Kenworth factory is putting forth in trying to get truck build rates up.
Right.
But the problem is the suppliers
Right.
that feed Kenworth. I know that Kenworth has sent some of their own staff from the factories into some of their suppliers to help them.
Oh, wow.
It gives you an idea of the depth of the problem when
Right.
they realize that, hey, we have to do this to get parts and to put trucks together.
Here's some labor for you. Yeah, I mean, I've dropped a couple trucks off at Kenworth. Peterbilt's the same, but man, one day it seemed like a graveyard, just so many trucks sitting, waiting for parts. Like, that one needs a chip or this one needs a sensor. And it's just, I feel bad for the independents. That's their only truck and they're out of business for 6 weeks or something.
Yeah, it's
It's
very challenging.
pretty rough. What kind of customer demands are you seeing right now? What do people want?
Parts. In a timely manner.
Right.
They want the right parts, and I think that because of what we just talked about, the sad part is the difficulty in getting them timely. We used to think that we could get a part within a matter of days, almost any part. If somebody said, I got to have this, and that was something we took a tremendous amount of pride in. And, I talked to our parts department on a regular basis, and I've known the guys that run our parts department real well, and they work their tail off in trying to help our customers get things and going to lengths I've never seen before. So I got to take my hat off to those guys and the efforts they put forth. On the customer side of it, people need trucks to replace the old stuff they've been running. Last year we're basically our order board was pushed out, orders canceled. That was tough, very tough. I'm glad we haven't gone through that this year, and I'm hoping that those days don't ever return.
Yep. Last question for you, Rick. I don't know if you're able to put some numbers together, but we were interested in automated manual transmission versus automatic sales today compared to 5 years ago, compared to 10 years ago.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I can go back 10 years ago, but I know, let's say just a few years ago, we were in the 60% range for automatics. And now, like I mentioned, in the 75 to 80% range. So that's certainly come a long ways.
Yeah, I thought, I don't know if it was you or in our talking, but this transmission is like the most successful release PACCAR has ever had on a product. Rick, have you heard that, or was that with you that we found that out?
I would agree with you. When I look at the amount of people that similar operations, and even not similar operations where people have embraced the PACCAR transmission, the 12-speed has just taken off and has really done a great job. When I think of the ease of use, I think the drivers really love that transmission. I think it's very intuitive to drive. When I look at the fuel economy benefits, it's hard not to like.
Oh, everything about that transmission is a win-win. I mean, when we were first educated on it, just the weight savings alone was huge. I mean, we were looking, we had kind of ran the gamut with transmissions, kind of a standard with a 13-speed, and then we became standard with an 18-speed, and then we bought some used trucks that had 9 and 10 speeds in them, and it was a growth moment, so we were kind of forced to get what we got. And when we learned about that 12-speed, I call it the PACCAR 12-speed, but just the weight savings alone, and then everything you just mentioned, Rick, the ease on the driver, how well it works, just the fluidness, how fluid it is. It's just a phenomenal piece of equipment, and I mean we love it. I'm always amazed every time I look at them. I'm like, I think my transmission in my pickup is bigger. I'm always dumbfounded how small it is.
Yeah. And both you guys, you were listening to Bill, and maybe you know it off the top of your head, Rick, but like yesterday we were speaking with Bill and Rick about some other trucks and stuff, and one of the trucks had an Allison automatic in it. And for Dave's example, unless I got it wrong, you guys, like I said, correct me, but the Allison was 580 pounds heavier, I thought Bill said. Was it that much, or was it 380?
It was significantly heavier.
Yeah, it was a bunch. The Allison is that much heavier than this 12-speed. Mm-hmm. And for us doing what we do, we can't have that Allison.
Yeah.
Even if and it's not that it's that much better of a transmission, even if it's truly an automatic. But I know the weight savings is amazing.
It's just crucial because when you think about as we evolved, we went 13-speed, 18-speed, a little heavier. Then when we got the used trucks drop into the 9 or 10-speed, we looked at that weight advantage, and then we were running some 13-speed Ultra Shifts, and then Ultra Shift Plus. Well, that was a ding in the wrong direction. Those transmissions were heavier than a standard 13-speed, but they took any driver abuse issue out of the equation. So we're like, well, does that couple 100 pounds extra mitigate any abuse to a clutch or whatnot like that? And this transmission just fit. It cured all of those needs. There were 20 things that we needed, and it fit every one. So pretty cool.
Yeah, I just want to correct myself too. I said automated manuals versus automatics. So basically, automatics versus manuals, not automatics. Yeah.
Well, so we use the term so freely, Jam. We call these transmissions automatics.
Right. Yeah.
Right? They are AMTs, just like you mentioned, an automated manual transmission, which just means it still has a clutch, it still has gears, it still has to push in the clutch and shift.
Right. Yeah, throw-out bearing. It's got all that.
It has all the components minus a pedal.
Yeah.
The driver's just not doing it.
I was comparing AMTs versus automatics.
Right.
Oh, gotcha. Like an Allison.
I just meant to say manual. Either way, whatever. You guys get the drift. Correction to my correction to my correction. And Jim, you must have read my mind because I was going to ask Rick, is there a future truly automatic transmission coming out that's lighter than the Allison?
There's an 18-speed AMT that was just released.
Okay.
And I think that's going to have a good place for the fleets that need that additional gearing and shorter splits.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've ran into a handful of heavy haul guys that I'm like, why aren't you running? I truly believe the 12-speed. I could go haul heavy equipment with the 12-speed, Rick. I feel so firmly about how well that works. And, I've had a lot of guys, I can't hook up to the low boy softly. I can't do this. I can't do that. And it's like, bullshit. With the urge to move, you can. There is no, if you can't, something is malfunctioning, right? Something's wrong.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing that transmission won't do that you can do with a manual. I have to stand here and say that.
It would be interesting, Dave, because I know you were with me yesterday, and we have a good friend that works for Garney Construction, and we ran by and talked to him yesterday on his job site, and he had a John Deere excavator there, and the thing it's big, and then Garney orders.
It was torn down and it was big.
Yeah, and Garney orders their equipment with an extra 4 foot on the stick.
Yes.
Doesn't matter, John Deere, Cat, doesn't matter. They order 4 foot on top of the stick, and it's to place their pipe. They can reach out and place pipe with it. And so we're talking to Rich, and we're like, Rich, what's that weigh? And he's like, he thought about it for a minute, and I'm like, oh, Rich might not know. And he's like, I believe that's 180,000.
187,000.
Without the counterweight.
Yes.
And then it's got an additional counterbalance because they took one weight off.
Yes.
Then they lowered the counterbalance off the machine because
Because they had to compensate for the 4 foot of extra boom.
right. So
Yeah.
four Rivers showed up and they were breaking the machine down.
Because they needed to move it.
And
they need to move it 2 miles away.
right, exactly. So then they were taking the stick off of it, the not the boom, but the end stick with the bucket off of it. And so Rich was sitting there in his head, and he's like, I think complete, that's probably a little over 200,000.
Wow.
Sitting there.
200,000
And
pounds.
then so you think about the 12 speed, and you're going to drop 1,200,
Right.
200,000 pounds,
Yeah.
and have the 12 speed make that shift.
Well, yeah.
when maybe you need that close one, like you said,
Yeah,
Rick,
the
on that
18
18
speed,
speed, because
Yeah.
whether it's down the street or not.
Well, there's heavy haul, and then there's that.
right?
I mean, there's only one company that'll move that hoe, and they have to come up from Colorado Springs. And every time they move that hoe, it's $10,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's short of distance because they have to pay, 2 mechanics come out, on-site rigs, tear the machine down.
From John Deere.
Yeah, from John Deere, tear the machine
And
down.
they know their shit too, because we watched
Yeah.
them. They were good.
Takes 2 trucks to move the machine because you have the machine itself, and then you have what's called the fall-off load, which is all the stuff they took off. And they call it a fall-off load because by the time you tie everything down on the other trailer, something's going to fall off on the way over.
And that's the rails, the handrails to get in
the
it,
bucket, the exhaust stack. They have these GPS
sensors,
meters that when they're digging, monitor everything. And
That's so cool.
I mean, yeah, it was just crazy. And I mean, you think about putting on a 200,000 pound load. Well, that truck that showed up is probably well over 50,000 pounds empty. Well, actually, that's not true. I mean, just the 10-foot wide one up the street, he's over 80,000 pounds empty.
Yeah.
So I mean, that tells you something. When when your tear weight is over 80,000 pounds. Wow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
haul no rock.
Yeah. So you're moving a 300,000 pound load virtually when it's all said and done.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's
That's
cool
crazy.
stuff. Cool stuff. And then we got into fuel mileage, like what's that machine burn? And Rich is like, it depends on, how we're running it, placing pipe, I guess if it's digging all day long, just straight digging, it's about 150 to 180 gallons a day.
Yeah. In an 8 to 10 hour shift.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And they replace those machines every 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine what that machine costs. Well over $1 million.
Yeah.
Has to.
Yeah.
Has to be.
And Garney's a good company. I mean, Rich works for him, but we've learned a lot about this company, And as you go to like MHC or Garney or anybody, Leprino, you try to learn stuff from companies, and their whole thing, because they're employee owned, they try to grow every year at 6%.
Oh, wow.
Their goal is to have a 6% growth. And that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Rich didn't know if they reach it every year, but that's adding the employees.
They're
Like
at
they just
1,600 people. Is that what he said?
1,400 employees,
Okay, yeah.
and they want to grow
6% every
every year.
which is more growth, even though it's only 6%. The bigger you are, the bigger that number gets, the bigger that number gets. Right? 6% of 1,400. I didn't do the math, but say 10 people. The next year it's 11 or 12 people. Then the next year it's 13 or 14 people. So yeah, it's crazy.
And just like you, Rick, when we were talking to him, they've added crews, but they have no equipment for the new crews.
Yeah.
And so they're 6%. They're not being able to grow by that because they can't get equipment.
I mean, 6% of what though? Employees, of gross income, of, you know what I mean, of everything.
It seemed like size, Jam.
Gotcha.
It has to be across the board because you can't grow by employees if you
Not
don't
growing
have
that
the growth
income.
to support it, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, maybe you can't grow your income if you don't have the people to grow it.
well, that's what I'm talking about. I think
Hand in
that
hand.
yeah,
It's intertwined.
absolutely, yeah.
You guys got any more questions for Rick before we move on?
I don't have any questions, but I do have like a kind of a comment or a follow up. You know, I just want to throw out there when we started this journey with you guys, you know, 3.5 years ago or whatnot, Rick, when we met Brant Gregg, who's what's his perfect title? What's the
Branch manager.
Branch manager over there. And, you know, Bill Persicchiti, who works alongside with you, has been over there over 20 years. Scott Lockhart, which has been over there probably 30 years. I know he was at the old facility. Burl out in your service. I guess I just want to give a shout out to those guys. You know, there's Brant, I think, has worked hard, as all of you have, to assemble this team of people that kind of cover all the bases. You know, and right there for us, that's branch manager, through the sales department, through the parts department, through the service department. And I guess those things, when you build that relationship, it's so nice to go over there, you know, walk past your office or Bill's office, say, hey, you know, if Brant's in there, say, hey, whatever the case may be. You know, we had a deal here last year. We ran into some fuel issues and clogged up like 25 DPF units. And Burl, you know, he's the weekend guy. And Mikey was gone on vacation, and I was like, looks like I'm the guy, and was over there dealing with Burl, you know, and I was dropping off 3 and 4 DPFs at a time, and he was burning them clean and just going back and forth, and it's just so nice to have a relationship, a rapport, to go in, and it's not, well, who's on today? Who's that guy? I've never met him. Oh, another new person, you know, that just some solidity there, some stuff. So shout out to everybody on your team.
Appreciate that.
It's been
Pass
really
that
nice.
along.
Yeah.
Get them to listen to the podcast. We can use the listeners.
Yeah, it's talking about listeners. I just thought about that other podcast you guys brought up. There is another trucking podcast out there, and you know, just coming in here to do this podcast today felt good. You know, and then just sitting here having Rick on, and our podcast kicks ass, guys. It does. Rick, I'll give you this other podcast. If you can make it through 10 minutes of it, let me know. JR wanted me to bring up tardiness. We had some guys leave late this morning, and they didn't know what the repercussions were of not being out of the yard on time. We have a 5 a.m. start. You have to be out of the yard by 6. You have 1 hour to get out of the yard. At 6:01, you're late. And that costs you a percentage bump for the week, and it costs you earnings, 1 month earnings of PTO. So I think one of the comments to JR was, oh, it's summertime, I'm just out partying. And JR's like, you know that costs you your PTO, right? And he's like, what? Costs PTO? Yeah. I mean, everybody knows that. You signed off on it. So be out of the yard on time.
Everybody should know that, right, Jam? I mean, that's in the packet. It's gone over. JR's very explicit. Scooby is, you know, in the orientation and
It's
whatnot.
not, yeah, everyone should know, new people as well as
Right.
vets, because even the vets, when we came out with our PTO program, there's a signature document that you signed saying you understood how it works. Whether or not you took it upon yourself to read what you're signing, I mean, that's kind of up to the individual.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and in the years past, not to dwell on that because it's kind of a negative thing, but we've had people leave the yard at 6:02 and, you know, they didn't earn their pay for the week, right? The bonus
bump.
pay, the attendance bump for the week. And they're like, well, I was only 2 minutes late. And it's like, no, you were an hour and 2 minutes late.
Absolutely.
We gave you that hour. You have 60 minutes
Yeah, the
to
pit
take care of.
opens at 6.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, I guess I just want to emphasize that. Like,
Yeah.
hey, this is in your control, and we've given an extremely huge buffer.
yeah. And it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to mark people late knowing what they lost
Yeah,
or what they didn't earn. You know,
Right.
it doesn't feel good to me, but there is, we got to, I mean, here's on time, here's not.
Yeah.
You may think you missed it by a minute,
Yeah.
but you had an hour to get out of the yard. So
Yeah, most people here spent 12 years in school. If you walked in that classroom after the bell rang, you were late.
Exactly.
Right? I mean,
Exactly.
we were taught for 12 years
Right.
how to get to class on time. Well, this is what we need here.
We
right?
need-
Not
we need-
rocket science.
Yeah, we need a bell here. That's what we need. That would be awesome.
This is the bell, and this is the tardy bell.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You talk about different cultures and stuff, and I know we've all discussed that. But I was just talking to Danielle, my oldest daughter, and I know I've mentioned her quite a bit about being a nurse, and she's got a new student that she's training, and their culture is got to be there by 7:00, right? But their culture is like 6:53. That's just all the nurses are on deck.
7 minutes early.
Right? That's and she goes 7:50 or 6:53. That sounds weird, right? Or 6:55. But we're all there because at 7:00 we're trading off.
Right.
And it's patient care. And Banner pays them. You can clock in at 6:53. You're getting paid, right? That's the culture. You're ready to go. And her person that she's training is 7:02, 7:15.
Yep.
And Danielle's like, I'm trying to work with her, but she goes, it's under my skin, and it's under my personal skin because that's not our culture. That's not our passion. And we can't trade off for our new patient at 7:05.
Right.
And her trainee was kind of like we've got mentioned here. It's just 5 minutes.
Right.
It's just 2 minutes.
Yeah. Well, why don't you just be 6:51 then?
Exactly.
2 minutes the other way.
Exactly.
Why don't you be 5 minutes even earlier?
Exactly. And the person she's training, it goes, I've even timed it from my house. And Danielle's like, well, if you timed it from your house, time it a few minutes early so you're here at 6:53, not 7:05.
Right.
And
Time to change the clocks at the house. 7 minutes fast.
right. So it's everywhere, and and I don't want to use these words, and I'm going to use these words. We're just truck drivers, and we're just hauling dirt, right? How does that compare to a patient's care? Well, it's about being better and doing your best and taking pride, because we're more than truck drivers.
Right.
And somebody is counting on that gravel and that sand at a job site, or to be batched, or the loader operator. Think about the chain of events that we trigger.
Right.
And it's important. So it's everywhere, and it's that
It is.
it's that being better and having pride. I would hate to be a patient, and my nurse, my person I'm counting on care.
Thinks 15 minutes late is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just, to hear that happens in an industry like that, just kind of blows my mind, because I know our standard and I know where we draw the line. Somebody, I think her peers, other than your daughter, because your daughter's kind of in charge of her, need to tell her, hey, if you think you're going to make it here, you need to be on time, because right now you're not fitting in here.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was, I'm just comparing it to what to people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
People problems.
And Danielle's had a talk with her, and Danielle was reported as being aggressive. So, Danielle was like, my aggression was, please show up on time, and we need to move past that. Right?
Can't believe you told me that.
It's funny because I keep running into this shirt, and I want it, but it's so aggressive, right? Exactly what you said, Danielle.
I'll wear it. What is it?
Yeah, I just love it because it's like, nobody cares. Work harder.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's... that
And they have a
is-
lot of different versions of it. Some really cool ones with the flag and all
that's,
sorts of stuff,
Oh, what's that archery hunting? There's an archery hunter, and that's his... That's
his motto.
that's
Nobody
his
cares.
song.
Work
yeah,
harder.
Yeah, Cameron Haynes.
Oh,
Cameron Haynes. He's a archery hunter, but he runs he has a job like we do, and he'll get home and run 7 miles.
Wow.
No matter what time it is.
Wow.
Yeah,
Good for
it's
him.
just nobody cares. Work harder. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's his motto. Yeah.
Right.
It's awesome.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into some questions from the audience. Rick Showtime Gray has blessed us with a good question here. What's the biggest disadvantage to growing this big? What are the concerns about growing in the future? Anybody want to answer that?
I mean, I didn't know there's been any disadvantages of getting to this size. I mean, I think maybe he looks at it that this size is big. It just seems like the norm to me now.
Right.
I don't think anything about it. I mean, to me, he can step back in time from the day he walked in the door here, and every single thing has gotten better.
Right.
I mean, he makes more money. He has better equipment, has a better PTO program, better health insurance, better. I mean,
better ever paid holidays from the day he walked in. I mean,
yeah,
it is.
I mean, just everything hands down is better than it was 13 years ago when Rick walked in the door. So,
Right.
I mean, I don't see a disadvantage.
Yeah, if I was to bring up a disadvantage, or Jam asked that question earlier, just to give us heads up on the stuff, I've thought about it a little bit, and I think you're spot on, Dave. The disadvantage, and it's not a disadvantage of the growth or the size, is there's more people to take care of.
Right.
And you don't want to leave a person off. When there was
Right.
10 people, I think I could say hello in the morning to 10 people.
Right.
Right.
Then we're at 50, and then we're at 100, and then we're at 150, and I've mentioned it how many times. I'm not seeing the guys over at the West Yard.
Right.
My fault. Could I go over in the morning? Probably.
Right.
But I have things here, so I think that's a disadvantage, but that's not a disadvantage for the job.
Right. I would say, and again, I don't want to use the word term disadvantage. One of the things that could be better is being under one roof.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
we're fixing that. So I think that might have been something to think about. And then, trying to touch 150 people every day.
Right.
I do feel some people may get lost in the mix. And I had an interesting church conversation this weekend, and you could say the same thing about our church, that we go to Red Rocks, right? And it started at Heritage Square, which was in an amusement park, in a small room in a building where maybe there was 35, 50, let's just say 100 people. Well, that's a pretty close-knit community, you know what I mean? Because I could get to know 100 people in one building pretty easily, you know what I mean? Well, now the church has grown. It's got 5 or 6 or 7 campuses, one in Brussels, Belgium, one in Austin, Texas. Well, how do you make community like that? And then they come up with small groups. Like, so here's a big church, but the meat and potatoes is going to get done in small groups. So I was kind of thinking about that because I had this last night, this question, and to me it's like, okay, well, here we have our company culture. We preach our creed. Well, it's up to you guys to live it. It's you guys create the meat and potatoes. So does the West Yard have a little bit feel and culture to it? Maybe, but it's up to you guys to live that out and make it happen. You know, so I don't know. That's something. I don't know if that's coming out right or not, but yeah, we are bigger, but as smaller groups, it's up to you guys. If you got 5 guys that you're tight with, it's up to you guys to live our creed. And then maybe somebody else has a group of 10 people that they're cool with. Ultimately, we all want to be a big group, but there's no reason we can't be smaller groups living by the JFW creed.
I think that's, a little bit, Jam, that's our view of reading the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right.
We haven't done that as a group since we were in grade school, possibly.
Right.
Or at another event. That's we're going to read the creed here at the end of the deal, but that's stating our beliefs and hoping those small groups take hold.
Right.
And going, this is what we're doing.
Yep.
And totally believe it. And back to Rick's question along those lines is, Rick, I hope you're out there every day as your small group, being a cheerleader for us, because Dave's exactly right. If I look at where we were at 13 years ago and where we're at today, I'll look at you straight at the face, Rick, and go, holy shit, you got it good, buddy.
Huh.
From then.
Way better now.
Right? Way better. Super
Way
Dave?
better now.
I can't even answer, because he comes to me and he says, I wish it was like it was in the old days. And I was like, really? Running a underpowered C12 he started in, I don't know what truck he started in, but he was driving that 10, that messed
whatever,
up 10
plus.
speed. Yeah.
Whatever.
Like a Super 10.
Yeah.
And it was 0020.
Yeah.
So.
And all the benefits we have now, it's just like, open your eyes and look at what we've worked hard to build.
Yeah, Rick, you got to feel the same way. You mentioned some great companies, but aren't things better in a lot of ways today, no matter what?
I love the analogy you said way back when we started talking to Rick about technology. Do you really want to watch that old TV? Right. Or is your HD TV flat screen better?
Yeah, I mean, do you want your 1970 car with no air conditioning and rides like crap? And, when it's sitting there running, it may sound really cool, but it's just, you can barely breathe behind it when they go by down the road.
Oh,
Come on, Dave. I dug that wing vent. You folded all the way around and pointed it at you to get some.
Yeah, you thought you really had a cool car when you had the floor vent you could slide open just to get some air come up past your feet, right? We're not going to mention what we used to call those.
Yeah, that question doesn't really bother me that much. It made me think a little bit, and I guess another advantage to being this big, if everybody's living our culture and our creed and being who JFW is, instead of having 15 people to help you on the side of the road, you got 113 people that could come help you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it should make us better, not weaker. And it reminds me of also, like, some people are really into, like, underground music. They like this rapper who's not very well known, and then the guy makes it, and they're like, oh, he sold out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to listen to him anymore.
Wow, what a great analogy, Jam.
Yeah, it's interesting. So thanks for the question, Rick.
Yeah. And as far as the future growth, when it's time, it'll happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's endless opportunities down the road.
I was going to answer that, Dave, that, Rick, we're not selling out.
Right.
We're not selling out. It's not going to happen. And not selling like the company. We're not selling out. If we get larger and more growth, we're not going to sell out our culture.
Nope.
It's not going to happen.
Nope.
So thanks, Rick, for the question.
We're all in.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Gerardo's got another good question here. Thanks, Gerardo. What are the plans for Saturdays now that LG Firestone and Fort Lupton are closed?
Like the creed says, face and overcome all that stands before us. I mean, whatever we need to do, Fry's will still be open, Boral will still be open. It's going to depend on volumes, what the plants are doing. Are they going to have to drop back because of the shortage of cement? They've already dropped back to just doing FOBs on Saturdays. So, I mean, that could change at any moment.
Right.
That's a today question that, depending on what this Saturday looks like, may be completely different next Saturday.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I guess we kind of almost have to face them every Friday to truly answer that.
Right.
So,
and in a large, sorry, Jan, large answer for him, and you mentioned the creed, Dave, is we just don't stand still. That's one thing, everybody needs to know, the new people and stuff like that, is we don't stand still, and we adapt so well. I mean, that's a key to what we do, is we adapt. I mean, even when to go back to Rick, we did a lot of flatbeds, 2006, 7, and 8. They sucked, but we can hook these tractors to any trailer and go do something. And we mentioned it. We hauled fertilizer to Nebraska. We did flatbed stuff. Rick helped us with flatbed stuff, went over the road for us. We hauled wood from back east, from Oklahoma, and we just adapted. So that's what we'll do with Saturday and Sunday, or Saturday and Sunday. But that's what we'll do with our Saturdays. And maybe it's working an hour later in the day because we're missing Saturdays. We're open to anything.
And then I thought Fry's like willing to open up on Saturdays if we guarantee to take 1,000 tons.
Right.
So there's work. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's other stuff to do. So who knows what we might pick up too. Good question.
And a smaller company couldn't grab that 1,000 tons. We can.
Oh yeah, 1,000 tons. I mean, that's pretty easy.
We can rock that.
I don't think Plan 12 needs any rock. So.
Good At least stuff. Not today. Tomorrow night.
Mike Vasquez asked, why do we always end out the day with Fry to 12 or 2? I know people are out at Union and 13. It's easy for them to get that last load in, but then we fight traffic from I-25 to Chambers. It makes for a long day. It would be nice to get a push for that early in the day if possible and finish with stuff that comes out of Morton, LG Fort Lupton, and Ragsdale. Traffic seems a lot easier back to 11, 2, Central, and 12 from those locations. He did add in, I think dispatch does an excellent job keeping up with as many of us that they have. I wouldn't want to do that all day. Keep up the great work. So it's not trying to slam anybody.
Yeah, no,
so
good question.
Thanks for being classy, Mike, but good question. Yep.
Yeah, there's the complexity of, and we try to say it all the times, are them doing the night pours, or let's say, Central's the one that's got, I'm making these numbers up, 500 yards during the day, 12's only got 200 yards during the day. We don't have enough trucks during the daytime, so we're concentrating on the 500 yards over here at Central, but then 12 shows up with a 1,200 yard pour at night. You can't take care of the 500 at Central, do the little 200 without running a late load to stock for the 12 at night. It's a logistics nightmare, right, Dave? I mean,
no, 100%. I mean, the look behind that is typically those last loads we're able to call the pits, go, hey, we need you to stay 20 extra minutes, 30 extra minutes, whatever the case may be. So it's truly a late load for everyone, which I get it sucks, but the when we're running into that, those are the 1,200 yard overnight pours, so we need to move 1,500 extra tons that day, right? So you have a normal day and another normal day you just had to stack on. So when Plant 12 needs 66 trucks for one day, we can't cover that throughout the day. We have to cover it at the end of the day to just scramble enough material in there, because all the rest of the plants are at capacity, which takes our fleet. If we were able to cover that during the day, throughout the day, we would probably have 15 to 20 more trucks than we have right now, but then they would sit the whole rest of the year, with the exception of when we have those night pours. If it wasn't for the night pours, we would be fine. We're adapted to the size of the volume of work we have for the most part, but that's the reason they call this a seasonal business. I mean, we couldn't just put fewer trucks at other plants, deplete their material stockpile, and then run everybody during the day to this plant, build it up, and then the other plant would run out the next day. So it is truly a moving stones. Like you have 10 stones and you need to move them accordingly and place everything, and then at the end of the day, the bulk of the stones are going to wind up at that plant just to get it covered. I mean, it's a great question. Definitely ways to explore that theory, right? But I mean, ultimately it's who needs it gets it, and they need it all throughout the day, and then the extra goes to 12 at night.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to that, Dave, and you just touched on it perfectly, is let's say we were able to, we know 12's got a 1,200 yard pour that night. We give them all our trucks during the day, and we look at Central and go, listen, you're the easy round at the end of the day. We're gonna send all our trucks because you're so easy to get to at the end of the day. That batchman for the whole day is going to go, where's my trucks? Where's my trucks? Where's my trucks? Because he's got his piece of the pie that he's looking at. And Mike, we're taking everybody's piece of the pie and trying to please them in that piece. And I know Mike's not giving us a shot, but it's like Dave mentioned, it's a stones.
Linda describes this batch as a puzzle with no pictures on the pieces, and people take pieces of the puzzle away from you without knowing, and they'll add them in without you knowing. At the end of the day, you got to have a completed puzzle. So there's just a lot of moving parts and a lot of layers to this onion, buddy.
And everything is so complex because you have yardages change at plants, so that changes their usage. You have, if we had 2 drivers call out, there's a dozen loads we just lost somewhere, so that's several hundred tons we're out. May have a leasey break down. We may have a truck break down.
Talk about the leaseys last week like we did. They're not capable to run out of fries.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a huge hit right there. The bulk of our leaseys can't run out of fries. So, I mean, just a lot, so many pieces to the puzzle. That's what we talk about with the pizza, and this is the opportunity that we get to discuss that is, it's easy to sit behind that wheel and you're just looking at your little slice of pizza. You may want the combination pizza that's got everything on it, and maybe by the end of the day, you just wound up with a piece of cheese pizza.
With pineapple on it.
Yeah. We have to look at the whole pie, not just the piece. So, there's a lot of times Jim and I step back and go, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? And then we have to go, oh, wait a minute. We don't have the whole picture. We don't know why they're doing this or why they're doing that. And then you find out and you're like, oh, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's when we were talking about the trucks being clean and the guys fueling them, I heard somebody last week go, "Hey, thanks to the driver who didn't fuel my truck and left so-and-so inside the cab and blah, blah, blah." And the other driver, answered back on the radio, "Hey, sorry, I broke down. The shop told me to pull it in the garage and leave it there." And that's the whole picture.
Right.
And when you mention that, Dave, that's just that small, gather the whole picture. We've learned.
Go ask.
Pretty well.
Get the story.
Right? Get the story,
Yeah.
and then let's put it together. Or get the story and go, well, how can we be better?
Right.
Because we failed.
Yeah.
And,
that's the guy on the subway, right? That's letting his kids run crazy.
Yeah. How
Yep.
the whole picture.
Yep.
I love data. I've learned that here.
Yeah.
Get the facts,
Yeah.
get the data, do some research. I'll hit this on my final thoughts, but when somebody comes to me with a problem and I know I don't have the answers yet, I don't give them the solution. Let's take a look at what's actually going on.
Right.
So
Yeah. And that's where those cameras are such a key, because you can replay it and replay it and replay it and go, okay, where was the problem? What can we do? How can we fix it? And we went years without that. Such a piece of tool.
yeah, excellent. Safety topics of the week. Soup, you want to kick yours up first? I know you talked
Sure.
to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is a really broad idea, but I mean, you obviously, it applies to everything that you do every day, all day, whether you're at work or you're at home. Don't get in a hurry, because haste makes waste.
Mm-hmm.
When you hit something, it's because you're not paying attention, you're in a hurry. When something goes wrong on you, a lot of times it's because you're not paying attention, because you're in a hurry. Slow down, look twice, get out, do your due diligence, and take your time. Because in the end, it's just like when you get a speeding ticket. You're late, you're in a hurry, and then you get stopped, and you're half an hour later than you otherwise would have been.
Yep.
But we have a lot of bent fenders on these trailers, and it's because the driver was in a hurry.
Haste makes waste.
Yep.
Yeah, we were coming down I-25 the other day and see this pickup truck merge on, and I mean, he is right up the car in front of him's ass. Like one of those situations where if that was my family, I'd want to fight you. You know what I mean? So I tell my wife, I'm like, oh, let's just back off. I don't even want to be near that guy. And the amount of lane changes this guy made, to get a quarter of a mile ahead of us and just driving recklessly, I was like, man, if a cop is anywhere near him and he sees us, I mean, he's not getting anywhere.
Right.
We'll be home and he'll still be on the side of the road, so good
Yeah.
point, Sue.
Touching on that too, Dave, I've noticed more and more, maybe it's the COVID thing and the lack of police and all this other stuff, is other people are in such a hurry, Dave, that they cause the problem that you don't expect because they're going so fast.
Oh, yeah.
I just had Saturday, I was over off of I-76 in Federal, and I wanted to go northbound on Federal, and I'm pretty sure both sides are 3 lanes right there, and I know the northbound side is 3 lanes, and I had to cross all of it, nobody coming southbound, and I looked and they were just leaving the lights on the underpass or under 76 there, and I pulled out with my pickup, and fortunately it's the lucky thing, I didn't jerk hard and go right to my closest lane, like the left lane, but I went to the middle lane, and when I made the turn to go north there in the middle lane, I had a car that I don't know where he came from, and I almost hit him, but he was in the slow lane, and it scared me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm thankful I turned in the middle lane. I would have hit that guy. And I'm like, Holly, where did he come from? And he came off the off-ramp, but he was running 60 miles an hour or some ridiculous speed.
Yeah.
And I mean, my looking north, my looking south, pulling across all 3 lanes, and this guy coming off the ramp at 60 miles an hour. And I was just lucky I went in the middle lane. And it would have been my fault. Nobody would have cared how fast he was going.
If you had your dad's Escalade, you would have seen him.
I could have, man, and it freaked me out, but I would have seen him, right? Yeah.
But good points by both of you, because haste makes ways for other people. If you're not taking your time backing into a bin and you crush your fender, you probably didn't waste very much of your own time, right? But guess who's got to fix that? The shop. Guess who's got to take pictures? Guess who has to deal with the accident? If there was another 4-wheeler involved, oh my God, there's so much time and effort and money put into that. So yeah, be careful out there.
Yeah, that's where it made my heart feel weird. Where you're just like, man, I could have hit that guy.
That's the worst. Speaking of close calls and making your heart or other body parts feel weird, you gotta watch where you put your hands and fingers. Me and Super Dave witnessed somebody almost lose their hand yesterday hooking up a trailer. They got their hand underneath the fifth wheel, between the fifth wheel and the fifth wheel plate, and that would not be good. It was scary, guys. So, like we said on the podcast before, don't ever put your hands or fingers where you wouldn't put your beep.
and just so, I mean, there's lots of us, and not, do any names, but this was a person in a safety position, Jam. So it's a position that you should know. You should know better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're ultra critical because we're teaching, we're learning, and we're showing. So we try to even be more careful. But it just goes to show you at any time one of us can lose our focus, and that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. And let's just dive in. Let's get into the details of hooking up a trailer. So if you're with somebody and somebody is underneath the trailer trying to fix your fifth wheel plate or doing something under there, your truck should be in neutral and the brake should be set. If that backup alarm is going on, nobody should be underneath the trailer. That's number one.
Sure.
Sorry, Jim.
Go ahead, jump in.
I just wanted, as you were saying, windows down.
Windows down.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. I had to yell at Super Dave to get him to stop. Not that it was Super Dave's fault, but there was a little bit of a tense moment there, right? The other thing is, if you're the guy that's trying to hold the fifth wheel plate up while the truck's coming back, the only way you should do that is with a shovel or something to get you out of the way and you're on the side of the trailer.
Get your body clear of
Get your
any
body clear.
hazards.
And I'm not throwing stones. I almost ran Mikey over one day doing this, and kind of like you felt weird with your accident. Well, I felt really weird when I almost ran Mikey over. If there's somebody in the way of a tire, like you said, Dave, they got to be clear of the equipment, okay? If you're by yourself or if you're helping somebody and you need to use a shovel and you put a block under the fifth wheel to hold the fifth wheel up, when you go to pull that out, make sure the guy driving is in neutral, the truck brakes are set, and that backup alarm's off. And you won't get hurt that way.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so Rick, I don't know if you've hooked up or been around one of our end dumps, but obviously a fixed fifth wheel, that. Our plates on our trailer like to flop down forward. Mm-hmm. So if you back up to them, you bust either the hydraulic hoses or the airline fittings and stuff like that. And sometimes you can bungee them, but otherwise it takes a person to either block it up, hold it up with a bar, hold it up with a shovel, and never...
It's such a design flaw.
Yeah,
I've looked at it so many times, and all I can think of is to hang a weight on the back.
We need hydraulic fifth wheel plates.
We do.
Ooh,
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're they're not a well thought out thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and to Dave's point, like me and Dave have hooked up so many trailers together when we swapped out the 40 Kenworths and when we added the 20, like
we were doing it like every day, 4 or 5 of
us. We would hook up 3 or 4 trailers a day or swap them out.
Right.
Yeah, we just got into a routine, and honestly, sometimes it's easier by yourself.
Yeah,
I mean, we've
is.
like if me and Dave are gonna go hook up a trailer, great. We've done it so many times. Jim, Dave, like our other guys around, but like sometimes it's like, you want help with that? It's like, nah. I'll just get it. It'll just go.
Yeah.
You'll put the hammer or the rock in the fifth wheel plate. Yeah. To go back just so far. Yeah. Go get your hammer out.
Yes.
And
that's even using a slick disc, right?
Yeah, and that's just your routine. You hooked up, you pulled on the plate, you went around then and put the pins in. Then you hooked up the airlines, right. It's tough. Yeah.
I just helped Rosario hook up. Not this last Saturday, but the Saturday before. Mike had it set up. We needed to work on his trailer, and he was to hook up to the trailer sitting on the side of the building next to the fuel tank. And when I walked out there, I helped him drop this one, and then I was walking out to help him hook to the other one. I looked at it, and I'm like, that is way too low. That is not even close.
Right.
And luckily there was a 2x4 laying there on the ground, so I took and lifted that apron plate before he was even close, as far up as I could, propped the 2x4 on its side to hold that apron plate up as far as he could. And I had him back up, which was stupid. I knew it wasn't even close. He was nowhere near getting under that trailer. I mean, we obviously dropped it with the forklift. Right. There was no way, because the only reason I know that is you couldn't physically get it undone from one of our other trucks. The Kingpin would have hooked the end cross member and just bent it out of the way. I mean, it would have just jacked everything up, and I'm like, just pull back out, Rosario. And, and it was one of those, I was like, back up, let's see how close. And, the truck's 4 feet away and you're still trying to eye measure it, and you're like, what? Come on back a little more, no, just pull out. I'll go get the forklift. It was on the very first hole in the landing lanes.
Way too
seriously,
low.
Nowhere near. So I was kind of thankful I was here to help him.
Sure.
Instead of just leaving him hang. Like, let me know if you have any problems. I'm nowhere near you, but hopefully you can get it. Right.
Yep.
So yeah, one of those things.
Last item on safety topics for the week is eye lead time. Does everybody know what I mean by eye lead time? Eye lead time is how far ahead on the road you're looking. Okay, you should have a 15-second eye lead time. So we've been kind of hammering the following distance, but we're actually getting a lot of harsh braking alerts. And if you watch the videos on the harsh brake alerts, the guy's just driving down the road, and then it's like, oh shit moments in his face. And you're trying to get the truck stopped, and you finally get stopped, and you see the look of relief in people's eyes. If you're looking 15 seconds up the road or more, you'll see traffic stopping before you have that oh shit moment. So.
Absolutely. I kind of add that to the scanning, and head on a swivel. I mean, you should be checking your mirrors every few seconds, and as you go from mirror to mirror, it's that scan ahead, back, know what's around you, all of that stuff.
Don't leave your eyes fixed on something for too long, because then you're missing on the other stuff.
Right.
Yeah, if you're looking at, an accident on the southbound side and you're going northbound, you're not looking ahead. If you're looking to the right, I mean, you just got to look at everything. You got to get the big picture, I guess, is my point.
You do have to look at everything, Jam. I hadn't heard that, the eye lead time, and I know I've mentioned it before. When Dad taught me to drive, with all his experience, he was like, we'd be driving along, they're like, what's that color of the car 2 cars back? What's the color of the car 3 cars up? How fast is that going?
Right.
And when I taught my kids, especially in bad weather, that one time with Danielle, it was like, that guy's not going to be able to stop at that stoplight, and he's going to slide through it. But that's the experience of looking so far ahead.
Right.
And just like the bad part of it is how we can judge, that person's I'm going to cut you off getting on the on-ramp.
Yep.
I'm going to speed up a little bit, or I'm not going to let you in. I'm going to close that gap, because you're looking that far ahead and you've learned that. And that's what you need to do when you're
Yeah, you're watching a car, in the lane ahead of you, right? And you're like, that guy needs over. Why doesn't he turn on his blinker?
Yeah, right. He wants over.
You see him looking in the mirror. You see him on the zipper, and you're like, just turn on your blinker, dude, and let everyone else know you need over, right? Yeah. I mean, those are the people, when you read those movements, it just kind of cracks me up. Yep. Everyone's almost afraid to use that blinker, It's like, wait a minute, that's what it's for. Let's communicate.
It's like you almost don't want to tell people what you're going to do, because then they won't let you do it. You know what I mean?
I know from experience that more people are friendly.
Yes.
Giving them the information, you're going to run into the one jerk.
Right.
Well, it's one jerk.
It's the gate.
Yeah.
You went past it 10,000 times. We hit it once. So that one guy didn't let you in, but how many more people let you in?
Yeah, absolutely.
One more thing I want to add into the 15-second eye lead time. The way you will never have a 15-second eye lead time is if you're following too close. If you're a second away from the car in front of you, you can't look 15 seconds up ahead because you're looking at those taillights. So,
good point, Jam.
Yeah.
Yep. You lose all of that, don't you, Jam?
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Soup, you want to hit us with the high road hauling?
Okay, we'll knock it out. So this week we're going to talk about something that should help everybody cope with all the modern day stresses and having a brain fart here, the modern day restrictions that we have on our life every day. Okay, so we'll just start out by saying life can be hard, life can be challenging, life is also amazing, wonderful, and a miracle. It is up to us to take control of the negatives so we can experience and cherish the amazing. In Japan, their culture believes one way to cope and manage with adverse situations is ukiru. It means acceptance of our relationships in our families, in school, at work, and in our communities. Psychologists say acceptance is a value that can go a long way in helping us manage stressors, big and small. Sometimes it's necessary to accept who you are, what you do, and what society does to you, explains Masato Ishida, Associate Professor and Director of the Center of Okinawan Studies at the University of Hawaii. It's not the same thing as resignation, he adds. Rather, it's more accepting the current situation in order to make peace with it and either make the best of it or move on. Shigenori Matatomo, PhD, Professor of Religion at Temple University, specializing in East Asian Buddhism research, uses the English word harmony to describe how acceptance, or ukuru, is part of Japanese culture. Human beings are understood to be beings in nature, hence the importance of establishing harmony with it and with everything else in the world, he says. A lot of people in Japan have an aim high, work hard attitude, which makes it tough to accept anything less than perfect. So this underlying way of acceptance helps in those times when everything doesn't go according to plan. Additional psychology research tells us that being more accepting of our own thoughts and emotions without judging them improves mental health and helps us cope with stress. By practicing acceptance, you make space to move on from your negative or unpleasant situation. For example, to move on from the loss of a loved one, you have to accept that they've passed away. Acceptance is much different from resignation, which is when you submit to something you're facing and give up in terms of making a change for the better. It also isn't necessarily something you block out a half hour of your calendar to practice. Rather, it's a mindset to guide your thinking day after day. You have to learn how to naturally use it to interact with people and the world. Recognize what's actually stressing you out when you're feeling wound up. Are you stressed out about that project deadline, or are you really stressed out because your spouse will be in the hospital for surgery soon? It doesn't always feel obvious when you're experiencing it. It's some underlying problem that's ramping up tension. And remind yourself that every situation is temporary. We tend to feel stress when we feel trapped. One way to make any situation immediately less stressful is to accept it and remind yourself that it's temporary. The burden of what you're feeling won't last forever. And be kind to others and yourself. This is part of ukuru. And the quote today, which is an awesome one, and I think we've heard it before, but the expectations of life depend on diligence. The mechanic that would perfect his work must first sharpen his tools, by Confucius. So take that and think about releasing your stress by accepting your situation.
I like it.
I do too. It's a good one.
Yeah, acceptance day.
Final thoughts, everyone?
I'm going to jump in there on partnerships. I know we've talked about, being thankful for all of our employees so many times. And, we like to say thank you and all of that. But the partnerships we've created, not only with our employees, but our vendors such as MHC and our fuel suppliers and our tire suppliers and just everyone that helps JFW go round and round. When I stop and think about that, for 87 years, I remember as a kid, Dad bringing Jim and I to work, and he'd be like, "Come on, boys, I got to run over to Fruhoff. We're going to go see Bob Kramer." Or, we'd walk in somewhere and to walk in and be met with appreciation and as a good customer and whatnot always felt good, but to be educated and learn about products and understand things and our partnerships, Jim and I understand and value the partnerships because without them, we're nothing. We're only as good as the people we've chosen to do business with, just like we appreciate the partnership with Brannon, we appreciate the partnership with MHC, we appreciate all our other customers. It takes every link in the chain to continue to grow and continue to be successful and continue to do things the right way. So I guess those are kind of my final thoughts. The partnerships, be it with the people that work here, with the JFW family, from top to bottom or from, side to side, it doesn't matter. All the partnerships, that's all we have really in the end. You know what I mean? Is your relationship with those people. So Yeah. I'm
Good
thankful
thoughts.
for that.
Rick, you got some final thoughts?
I'd just like to, first of all, say thank you to you guys for allowing me to be a part of this. And I think today I walk away richer than when I came in. You know, I've gotten to know you guys, you know, obviously over the last, let's say, few short years. But at a time like this, getting to see the interaction and talking about the things that really drive your success, to me, it's a great experience. And it helps also for us to figure out, okay, hey, what can we do more of? What areas? So when we're thinking about brainstorming to help a company, so that, let's say, for those challenges of the following distances,
Sure.
how do we help the drivers? How do we help educate? I went through one of the Smith driving programs, and I remember where one of the terms they used, or it was, don't drive into an accident.
Huh.
And for whatever reason, that always stuck in my head. Like, don't make sure you're not the one driving into a bad situation. Here again, and that just expounds on that looking ahead.
Sure.
But anyway, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Rick.
thank you, Rick. Yeah.
If you're swarmed by paparazzi when you leave here, don't be surprised.
I do hear the fan club outside.
Wouldn't that be cool? Really, realistically, wouldn't that be cool?
Jim?
Yeah, I mean, Dave, we always seem to touch upon a lot of the same things when you do your high road hauling and acceptance, and Rick, you mentioned, you know, just now, you know, being able to come in here, and I mentioned it last week, is we're kind of a support group, and hopefully we can be a support group for some of the drivers out there as they learn about us and listen to our podcast here and stuff. And one of the things I heard this weekend is one of the radio people was talking about relationships, and she was fairly newly married, and she said, it's driving me crazy being newly married is my husband leaves every cabinet open. You know, just no matter where we're at, he's doing something in the kitchen. And she's like, he's cooking a great dinner for me and the whole bit. And she goes, from the front room, I can look in the kitchen and there's 13 cabinets and all 13 cabinet doors are open. And she goes, I'm just like cooking inside. It's driving me crazy. You know, I got this wonderful meal, and she goes, you know, I think back to what my dad told me, and he gave me a little bit of marriage advice, and it's one of those where you ask somebody that's been married a long time what bit of advice it is, you know, do you have for me being married? And she goes, you know, I sat there and I thought, and that my dad told me, he goes, as long as it's never a deal breaker, it is no big deal.
Right.
As long as it's just not a deal breaker. And that's acceptance to go with your high road hauling, Dave. And I think about, it made me immediately think the worst. Well, what is a deal breaker? You know, and I can think of some deal breakers, but they are the worst, right? You know, it could be abuse, you know, but everything else is just pretty petty, and nothing is really a deal breaker. And to what you just said, Dave, all it boils down is to relationships
Yep.
with your family, your wife, your vendors, your employees. So yeah, everybody, if it's not a deal breaker, hang in there.
Yep. Put relationships over problems.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
what's more important?
Yeah, good point.
Soup?
Let's be safe. Think twice. We're all guilty of being in a hurry. We're all guilty of overlooking something. So you have to consciously stop and say, oh, I better have a second look at that, or I better slow down, or something's spiraling out of control. Let's step back. So everybody stop and take a little time to think twice.
Awesome. My final thoughts is come talk to me. I've had since Thursday I was off Friday, so yeah, Thursday. Since Thursday today, I've had 3 drivers come and talk to me with problems they faced, and man, it feels good to talk to them about that and come up with solutions, or find out the information, get the data, and be able to sit down and have an adult conversation about things. So that's what I'm here for. If you got a problem, or you don't understand something, or you have an idea to make JFW better, please do that. I've had one driver call me this morning. he has a great idea. I'm going to bring it to the steering committee on Monday, or at least find out why we can't do that, or would we do it, or things like that. So come talk to me, everybody.
Yeah, no, those. I don't want to take away from your final thoughts.
Do
but
it.
Those are heroes.
Yeah.
In my book, they took the time to realize it's not a deal breaker on what I just said, and talk to you.
Right.
And God, is that just for them to be brave enough to do that, and for you to have, and I'm going to say, shoulders to bear it, but you're the person there opening yourself up to be able to talk to them, and that's amazing. That's a cultural thing.
Absolutely. One of my pet peeves is when a driver comes to me and says, "Are you busy?" Or "I know you're busy," and then my job is to help you. I'm busy helping you. So what do you need? Let's get to it. Yeah. So, final thoughts.
Yeah.
Gonna read the creed.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's read it, you guys. Yep. I have to read mine. I don't have it all memorized, so I got my little deal. You guys all good? Rick, you want
Super Dave made me memorize it. It's part of my initiation to recruiting and hiring.
When I grabbed it out of the office, I was like, I need to memorize that. So yeah, absolutely, Jim. It's funny. So, you guys ready?
Yep.
Together we face and overcome all that stands before us. Together we are accident-free. Together we joyfully create honest value for those we serve. Together we celebrate our differences and respect those with whom we work. Together we are accountable for our words and our actions. And together we are the JFW family.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.